Welcome to our meetings this morning. We have a few meetings before we get to our commission meeting that we need to take care of. There are two that have been noticed, and they deal with our service areas. We have service area 7 and 8, and it has been requested that we continue those for 1 week. Any discussion on that or concerns?
No, that's fine.
I'll move that we continue for 1 week. Dave, can I lump that, the public hearing and the whole thing together?
Oh yeah, we probably no. We better separate. I'm sorry. Let's hold the public hearing for service area number 7. If there's any here that want to speak on to the service area number 7, we'll open up that for public hearing right now. Okay, seeing none, let's
move to close the public hearing for service area 7.
Get a motion and a second to close the public hearing for service area number 7. All in favor say aye.
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 That passes 3-0. On our agenda is item number 1 and 2. 1 is the minutes of last week, and 2, of course, is to adopt the resolution. We can go ahead and approve the minutes for this time, and then we'll continue number 2.
Move that we approve the minutes of the December 5th, 2017 meeting for the Utah County Service Area number 7.
Second.
Got a motion and a second to approve the minutes of December 5th. All in favor say aye.
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 That passes 3-0.
Move that we continue the adoption of the resolution.
Was that? Oh, go ahead.
I'll move that we continue the adoption of the resolution adopting the 2018 budget for Utah County Service Area 7 for 1 week.
Second.
I've got a motion and a second to continue number 2 on our agenda for 1 week. All in favor say aye.
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 That passes 3-0. Okay, now we'll move into service area number 8, and we'll open up the public hearing for any comment related to service area number 8. Is there any public comment? All right, seeing none, a motion to adjourn from that.
I'll move that we close the public hearing.
Second.
And a motion and a second to close the public hearing. All in favor say aye.
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 That passes 3-0. On the agenda is to approve the minutes and to adopt the resolution. A motion for number 1 to be in order.
I'll move that we approve the minutes of the December 5th, 2017 meeting for Utah County Service Area number 8.
Second.
Got a motion and a second to approve the minutes of December 5th. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. That passes 3-0.
Move that we continue the adoption of the resolution adopting the 2018 budget for the Utah County Service Area number 8 for 1 week.
Second.
Got a motion and a second to continue agenda item number 2 for 1 week. All in favor say aye.
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 Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Got a motion and a second to adjourn. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. That passes 3-0. Okay, now we'll hang on 1 second as we change this recording. Okay, we're now in a Board of Equalizations meeting, and on the Board of Equalizations we have 7 items. First one is a continuation from last week, and if I remember correctly, had to do with some funerals and so forth. Bert, if you'd like to go over that one.
Yeah, Commissioner, Bert Harvey, Clerk Auditor's Office. The first one was a petition to hear an appeal after the deadline by Miss Karamesh Mele. I probably am slaughtering her name, and I apologize if she hears this on the recording. But there was a question as to the funerals that she attended, whether or not they were immediate family members. I called her, and she said that they were an aunt and uncle and a close family friend. Obviously, the close family friend would not... That was Paul's fault. I'd like the record to note that was Paul's fault. Anyways, obviously, the close family friend would not probably qualify as an immediate family member without any other information. The aunt and uncle, we're not totally sure because the guidelines don't necessarily define immediate family member. My assumption has always been the immediate family member would be father, mother, brother, sister, spouse, children. But Paul was going to look into that. I don't know if he has any other relevant information to bring forth.
Mr. Jones?
I don't have any other relevant information to bring forth. I think you'll have to make a determination about whether the aunt and uncle are part of her immediate family.
That doesn't help much.
The auditor's recommendation doesn't change. We still feel like this one should be denied. Again, based on Ms. Melee's conversations with Sally Leo, the equalization clerk, we don't feel that the extenuating circumstances really prevented her from filing an appeal on time, since she was already involved with the state appeal and was really aware of the deadlines and feel like that she probably should have filed this appeal timely. So we don't feel like that, based on the circumstances, based on all the information we've got, really don't feel there's justification here to move forward. Of course, as always, it's the board's decision, and we leave it up to the board.
Was there at least proof of a funeral for the in-law?
She did not provide any additional proof other than what she wrote in her statement. But to be fair, I also didn't require I didn't ask her to provide any additional proof. But no, she did not provide anything other than what she gave us already.
Okay. Any other comments or concerns?
Nope.
A motion be in order?
I
Move that we deny the petition as stated in number 1.
Second?
I've got a motion and a second to deny the petition as stated in number 1. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. That passes 3-0.
Just a housekeeping note, and for the board's information, of course, all of these, if the individual feels that we've denied it in error, they are available to appeal that to the state tax commission. So if
Billy, thank you. Yeah,
so there's an
that's true.
appeal available.
Okay, number 2.
Number 2, again, the recommendation is denial on this one. If I remember correctly, let me actually pull the paper on this one. Oh, yeah. Mr. Loveday says that he did not receive the valuation notice. I included a mailing history showing that we mailed it to the address of record. As far as the county's responsibilities to notify the property owner, we've done what we need to do. We can't always force people to open their mail, but we did send it to the address that was listed on the in the file and on the warranty deed that was recorded for the property.
Okay.
We'd recommend denial on that one as well.
Any comments, concerns with that one?
Questions on this one?
Okay, a motion to be in order?
Move that we deny the petition as stated in regular agenda item number 2.
Second.
I got a motion and a second to deny the petition as stated in number 2. All in favor say aye.
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 That passes 3-0. Number 3, similar situations.
Number 3, similar situation. In this case, again, this was one I went a little bit deeper on. There was a warranty deed recorded that listed the address that the notice was mailed to. The valuation notice came back undeliverable. The tax notice came back undeliverable, and the treasurer's office took the extra step of actually sending the tax notice to the forwarding address. It was listed on the label, and then that one also, I believe, did not go to the correct address. Mr. Whiting has this property is listed at a certain address in Mapleton. Mr. Whiting's mailing address is another property in Mapleton. As far as the county goes, we made every attempt, and even a little bit beyond that, to send him notice. We sent to the address listed on the address listed on the warranty deed. We made the required attempt. So, the fact that we just didn't get to him is not necessarily at the fault of the county. And based on that and based on what the guidelines are, we again recommend denial of this petition.
Okay, any comments?
And done?
Motion?
Move that we deny the petition as stated in number 3.
Second?
I got a motion and a second to deny the petition as stated in number 3. All in favor say aye.
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 That passes 3-0. Number 4.
Number 4, again, this is this is a request for a late appeal on the basis of a factual error. A factual error is generally, we will recommend approval on those when both the assessor's office and the appellant are in agreement that there's an error. In this case, there's not agreement. Mr. Othello feels that the change in his property's classification is an error, which then resulted in a value that he feels is above what he thinks the property is worth. The assessor's office did not make that change in error. They made that change on purpose. The property was previously classified as an RSOB, which basically is a residential property with a single building and agricultural property, to an MRAB, which is essentially a multiple building residential property. In other words, there's a house and several agricultural buildings on there. Looking at the classification without any kind of deeper knowledge would lead to some confusion, thinking that we're classing it as a multiple residential property, meaning that multiple houses on the property, and that is not the case. The classification is simply saying there are more than one building on the property. We are now picking up those buildings as part of the classification and valuation. So therefore, because no real factual error does exist, the auditor's office is recommending a denial of this one because there's not really a factual error to be argued. Value maybe, sure, but he's past the point and he did make that case in his petition.
Okay. Very good. Any questions to that? All right, seeing none, a motion to be in order.
Move that we deny the petition as stated in regular agenda item number 4.
Second.
Got a motion and a second to deny the petition as stated number 4. All in favor say aye.
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 That passes 3-0.
Okay, and the last petition on the agenda is Mr. Stan Weed for Bay Harbor Farm LC. He, in his petition, stated that he was working out of the state during the time period that the evaluation notice was sent. After he returned to the state and after he was done working, he experienced a medical issue, which probably would fall under the qualification. However, based on the timeline he outlined in his petition, the medical issue happened after the filing deadline for the valuation notice, and the valuation notice and tax notice have been sent to the same address for the past several years, so it's hard pressed to say he didn't get the notice on time. I'm not sure that the medical condition initially would pull this into an area where we would approve the late petition, because it did happen, again, based on his petition, it happened after the filing deadline. So ideally, we've been saying the notice is the same place. He would have had an opportunity, or whoever in his household also receives those bills while he's away, had an opportunity to file an appeal before the filing deadline. And so the auditor's office recommends denial on this one as well.
Okay.
Hey, Bert, the question is let's assume everything you said is true. The problem is had he had that medical condition, he still falls within the 30 days after that we have approved as a commission late appeals. Is that not correct?
Well, the 30 days is what we use as a guideline for doing exemption applications, because there's no, which means like a charitable organization that's applying for an exemption, we use that 30-day marker for the March 1st deadline and the 30-day deadline for if they acquire property after March 31st. And we use that in that situation simply because there's no state or statutory deadline that sets any additional parameters. So as a county, we're able to create our own processing procedures. In this case, and in valuation notices, I don't believe we have used that as a methodology or process before, Commissioner. So no, not necessarily.
Okay.
Yeah, I hope that wasn't too confusing, but.
No.
All right. Any other comments or concerns? Motion to be in order.
I'll move that we deny the petition as stated in number 5.
Second.
I got a motion and a second to deny the petition as stated in number 5. All in favor say aye.
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 That passes 3-0. Number 6 is to approve the Board of Equalization Assessors approved review process report. Any questions on that? Seeing
None for me.
Move that we approve regular agenda item number 6.
Second.
I got a motion and a second to approve number 6 as stated. All in favor say aye.
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 That passes 3-0. Number 7 is to approve the Board of Equalization hearing process report. Any questions on that?
No.
Seeing none, a motion to be in order.
I move that we approve item number 7 on the agenda.
Second.
I got a motion and a second to approve number 7 as stated on the agenda. All in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
That passes 3-0.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. Motion would be in order to.
Motion to
Motion
adjourn.
to adjourn.
Second.
Second.
I got 2 motions to adjourn in
Let you
2
pick.
seconds. You can pick whoever you want.
I'll do the second.
Okay. And all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye?
Aye.
We are now adjourned from that meeting. We will now move into our, oh, hang on, we gotta always change the recordings. I can't quite figure out why we can't blend these together, but anyway, we'll just do it. All right. We are now in our Board of Commissioners, our commission meeting. We've got the three commissioners here. Commissioner Graves is on the phone. And as always, we start with a prayer, a reading, or a thought. And Richard Nance has volunteered to give the prayer, reading, or a thought. Is there anybody in the audience that is willing to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance? Okay, Raphael.
This has kind of become sort of a tradition. Richard Nielsen demands that I do this every year, so.
At first, I thought you get your name wrong.
But I got my own name wrong?
Well, when you said Richard
Well, we
Nelson,
get each
I
other's
thought you were-
email all the time.
I know. When you said Richard Nelson, I thought, wait a second.
So today's the first day of Hanukkah, and my wife and I celebrate both Christmas and Hanukkah in our household. And so in the interest of a little cultural diversity, I thought I'd offer the prayer for lighting the candles and tell you a little bit about that. So I'll do it in Hebrew and then in English. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kiddushanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu lahadnik ner shel Hanukkah. Blessed art thou, Lord our God, King of the universe, who has sanctified us by your commandments and commanded us to kindle the lights of Hanukkah. So two things. One is when we do outcome evaluations, we always do kind of a pre-test and post-test. Last year I asked you all how many commandments there were. And so for the post-test, do you remember?
It was a lot.
I wasn't elected, but I'll go with 278.
There's 185.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, there you go. I figured Greg would remember that because he was the one who said, well, I know there's
I
got to
missed
be
it
more
last
than
year.
10. So,
Yes.
but let me read one more thing for you. This is my reference book for Hanukkah. And this is one of the this is the reason why the Jews celebrate Hanukkah. They searched the temple thoroughly, but found only one small jar of oil, enough to burn for one day. A miracle happened. They were able to light the oil for 8 days. They thought it would burn for only a day, but the oil in the lamp kept burning. Some said the flame grew brighter and brighter, illuminating every corner of the temple and dazzling the worshipers at their prayers. So I thought this was kind of appropriate since you're doing the budget today, and it may take 8 hours instead of 1 to do it. And you've probably got 1 year's worth of oil budgeted, and let's hope it burns for 8. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Richard. All right. Pledge?
Please repeat the Pledge of Allegiance after me. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, first on our agenda is a public hearing to discuss the 2018 budget for the general fund and other budgetary funds of Utah County. And we will open up this public hearing for any comments. So please come on up. If you would, just come on up, state your name, and this is about the budget, if we can keep it to the budget.
Everything I say here is going to be pertinent to the budget. For
State
the
your
record,
name.
thank you. Raphael Millett, private citizen today. I also work in the Utah County Recorder's Office. I have taken vacation time to be here. my wife and
I don't
daughter.
actually think that's necessary, but that's,
I felt that that's
Okay.
what was best.
Okay.
I don't think it's necessary, but thank you for that.
Yeah.
I just felt that that was best to protect me.
okay. Fair
So, my daughter is having double knee surgery right now. I'm missing that, to be here. Okay. I would rather be there or shoveling poop out of a chicken coop or a barn or a stable than anywhere else but here right now. Yesterday afternoon between 4:30 and 5 p.m., Andrea Allen, Chief Deputy Recorder, called me. While I was at my desk, she called to come meet in her office. I went in to meet with her and Jeff Smith, the Utah County Recorder. They're both good people. I was surprised to see the County HR Director, Cammie, there. The meeting was uncomfortable for me, probably for many involved, but for me especially. I felt that I could not speak freely to Andrea Allen and Jeff Smith with Cammie there. I felt intimidated from her presence. The meeting was brief. I told them that the meeting was brief. It was less than 5 to 10 minutes. Before leaving, Cammie told me, and I told her that my daughter had surgery. I didn't know if I was going to be here, that I should not have any outbursts or speak out of turn in any meetings. I felt chastised and my voice silenced. And she said not to speak longer than 3 minutes at the podium. I didn't know that that was something. I thought it was just a general rule of practice. She told me that I shouldn't have any outbursts like I have had. Passionate feelings of communication that I have because I care deeply about the employees of this county, the people of this county, and everything in this building. I care about employee morale and productivity and efficiency. I care about people deeply. I feel that this was a wrong and injustice, and I felt intimidated. And I am willing to file a grievance, therefore, because I think it's a pattern. I bet that there are other employees to whom this has happened. And if I have to file a grandma request to get information, I will on human resources. I asked today to get redress. Why did she come down to that meeting? Did you, Bill Lee, ask her?
Nope.
Thank you. Is this against county policy, what occurred? I feel like people have been retaliated upon when they have spoken up here at the county. And I know many have, and many have told me. Has this happened to others? You will need to address that, because I know it has. I know a good many people have left the county, good professional employees, long-term employees, because of the dung and how they are treated and the crap that goes on here. I have felt, and I know that people in position of power have been threatened by former commissioners. I know I don't want to be here. I'd rather be scraping poop out of a chicken coop or a barn or a stable. But most of all, I'd rather be with my family today.
Okay. Thank you. Other comments?
Pam Bear. I'm with the Sheriff's Office, and I spoke last week, and I have done additional research since last week. Can I put minutes from prior commission meeting into this record?
Yeah, I don't see why not.
I would like to put April 17th, 07, work session agenda number 3, September 25th, 07, the regular agenda number 3, December 4th, 2007, public hearing. June 10th, 2008, public hearing. June 17th, 2008, regular agenda number 1. All of these meetings had to do with taking the 401A away from the county employees, the non-public safety. In '07, they were having problems with retention and hiring new employees. They looked for a way to give us they set a raise without it costing the county. They took 13.9% of our retirement and gave us a 12% 12% raise. So they saved 1.9% right there for the county. They gave us that increase, started January '08. And then they said, well, you'll have a market, this and that. And then we were locked down for 3 years. December 4th, 2007, in a public hearing about the elected officials, and I sent emails last night and I didn't get a response. It didn't answer. It didn't answer what I asked. And it was proposed the elected officials get the same type of raise that they gave the county employees, which was to take the 401A away from elected officials, take a step increase in your base wages, and that was approved, that it would be fair. June 10th, they discussed it more and said, they clarified, do we have to set base salaries for public officials, or it was clarified that the benefit package didn't have to be set. So they didn't have to disclose what their benefit package was. And then I got really confused when I got to the June 17th, 2008 agenda. I did not understand what was adopted. But it looks to me like the commission retained the 401A for themselves, took a 9.7% raise. So they got the raise to their regular pay, making the commission the highest commission in the state of Utah, plus I get 13.9% in an A and their 401K. Don't have proof because it's really hard to read that, so I'm asking. You have an A.
A lot of those happened way before I was here.
I know, and that's what I said last night.
Yeah.
It was prior commissioners, but the commission now is benefiting from it. You are having the same issues today with employees. Low pay, you can't hire, you can't retain. The people at the top, we've been topped out forever. So that's my point. I know you have an A, I know you have a K, I know you took it away from the employees, I know you still have the same pay issues. And you're gonna adopt a budget that gives us nothing again. That's my point.
Okay.
So I am asking, correct, you have an A, the commission.
Brian, I'm not actually sure if
You don't know what
As
goes
a-
into Prudential?
As elected officials, we do have the 401A. We participate in the 401K, and there is also the 457 if we so elect.
I just want to clarify.
make sure and state your name. if you
Merritt
would.
Fulmer, HR. I can address that commission, or elected officials no longer have the 401A. The exception to that is if they have opted out of state retirement, which is the same exception if a county employee with who has retired before, I can't remember if it's 2011 or before they changed the URS rules, if they had opted out or are no longer eligible for URS, then they would have a 401A. But no one in the county has the 13.9 or the 401 for the 401A. That was to kind of level the playing field for public and public safety.
In fact, Mr. Chairman, let me clarify my earlier remarks. When I look at my investments, I still have what is classified as the 401A. But Merritt is correct in that a change was made, and there was a step increase, but the 401A did go away, and I personally chose just to keep that going into my 457. So in lieu of salary, I put it into retirement, and that was a choice that we had as elected officials. So Merritt is correct. The 401A doesn't exist anymore, but anyone that had 401A investments, they still will show up on their credential statement that they have a
Yes.
401A account.
Okay. Okay, I gotta
And
be
it didn't-
careful that
It
we're
didn't
not,
happen at the same time as the employees in 2008,
Right.
but it happened at a later date that,
June 17, 2008. But from what I read in those minutes, the sheriff kept his, but he's retired law enforcement, so he didn't have a retirement.
Let-
But the
I wonder if-
commission kept it.
okay, I wonder if, just to make sure and keep order, you know, let's have one at a time, and then, it's not really designed for a
But-
debate, but, I mean, I want to give you all the time to talk, and if you, so, right now, Pam, if you want to
Well,
continue.
so I believe the commission retained the 401A. You're still
Okay.
getting the A. You're getting top of the market. And I have like a Daily Herald article from 2015 that compares our commission to the other elected officials, shows top. You guys are 100% a market. It shows our other elected officials. The sheriff is down below the other counties. The county attorney is down below the other counties. And I think the other one was recorder is down below the other county employees. And I wish personnel would have been on that market because I'm sure that they're 100% a market. So, and I do know that you adopted a 9.37 or a commission in June 18th, June 17th, 2008 for commission. So my point is, do you have the 401A still being contributed for
Okay.
the commission?
I do not.
Thank you.
So in order to know where,
VL.
sorry, state my name again?
Yes, yes, please.
Yes, Rayfield Millet, private citizen, as well as employee in the Utah County Recorder's Office. I would like to know, not know, but state for the record that we need to know what everything is in the past to know in the future. Utah's right only has so much, but total gross compensation versus each thing individual does need to be broken down here for the record for the elected officials and for the public, so they can know. All of this information is in the minutes, of course, as far as percentages, but things can be murky just because it's a little more vague for people. I know that if I read it, I have to break it down and take some notes. So I think that information should be displayed. And I'll digress now.
And I believe if you go on to our agenda and you open up the information that is there, I know that the commission's salaries are listed on there, not the benefit, I mean, they're broken down, so. Okay.
I'm Robert Stevens, Provo, Utah. I read through the budget, and I can see the what, but I don't understand the why. You know, if the philosophy is for the good of the county, it'd be nice that you labeled that. You know, and if you thought it's good because of 80% of the county would like that, then it'd be nice to know that. Or if it's 5%, it'd be nice to know. There is a philosophy that you're elected for the happiness of the people, and we don't want you to steal. We don't want you to go redistribute wealth in the name of theft. And we trust that you're not doing that. So if there's any uncertainty that, you know, this actually may be theft, then I urge you to go delay your budget. But for us who are the citizens, we can't see the why. We don't really know what the justification is for some of this stuff. It's obvious that for the sheriffs, for his budget, is to keep us safe. And so we can assume what the why is. Some of it is because of state regulations. And that's and that's a good why. If you label that on the budget, this is because of state regulations, we would know, and we wouldn't have to give it a lot of thought unless we're interested in fighting the state because of something that we believe in. Thank you for all that you do. I realize it's very hard, and you have lots and lots of issues all the time. And we're thankful that you're here, and I think we pretty much as a whole believe that the majority of the people who we elected are good and doing what is right. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments? Seeing none, then it would be appropriate for us to close this meeting. Public hearing.
Move to close the public hearing for the 2018 budget.
Second. Second.
I got a motion and a second to close the public hearing. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All right, we're out of that public hearing meeting, and now we'll move into our regular meeting. Just maybe some rules for clarification. As we go down through, we will organize our consent agenda, and then we'll look at our regular agenda. And if we need to pull off the regular agenda or off the consent agenda for discussion, commissioner can do that. Any commissioner can do that. And as we go down through there, if there are public comments based on one of the agenda items, if you'd like to come up at the beginning of that, state your name, and then have public comment for that specific agenda item. As we build the consent agenda, there will be an opportunity. If there was an item in the consent that you'd like to speak to, you can come up then. And then at the end, there is public comment available for anything other than what was on our agenda for today. So with that, our consent agenda let's see, hang on a second, our consent agenda has 24 items on there. Commissioners, just for clarification, I'd like to hold number 1 to make sure we're on the same page with that.
To make sure we have the right grant application.
Yes. And then number 18 and 19. And maybe just understand that number 21 is from our last meeting's kind of a clarification. It doesn't need to be held in my opinion, but it's a clarification from last week's discussion. So those are the ones that I'd like to have held. Are there any others on consent?
I do not have any on consent.
I'm good as well.
Okay. Moving to our regular agenda, we will put everything on our regular agenda on consent except for what we are pulling off. And I did not see any documents on number 1. Did that show up?
See if it loads.
I mean, we need
The
to.
document got uploaded on December 11th at 4:53.
Okay, so that one's just ratifying the signature of the commission chair to setting a date, time, and location for a public hearing to discuss and amend the increases to the budget for next week. We can leave that on consent, I guess. No concerns. Number 5 is just a little note on there. That one's also clarifying some issues that were brought up last week. So number 9, 10, and 11, if we could pull those off.
And those are the 3 I had.
Yep, works.
Okay. All right. So with that, Renee, are you clear on the ones that we're pulling off? Okay.
For discussion, consent agenda item number 1, consent agenda item number 18, consent agenda item number 19, and regular agenda item numbers 9, 10.
Yes.
For clarification, if I could, on item number 7.
On regular?
Yes, if you could keep that on regular. We need to authorize Richard to sign any closing statements as a part of that motion.
So to pull that off of consent, put on
Yes, if
regular?
you would.
Okay, fair enough. All right, so you added number 7. All right. Are there any public comments with those items that we've put on consent? Okay, seeing none then, we will move into those that we've pulled off. Number 1, I just wanted to make sure on that one that we have the right application. I believe everything is taken care of with that. Dave, I'm looking to you on that. That we have everything that has been signed and ready to go on that application. I know there was a little bit of
There was we had an
older-
outdated form, so
yeah.
we resubmitted that yesterday on the current form. So that now has, and the amended was uploaded, so the one that's shown as the amended is the correct.
Okay, fair enough. A motion to be in order on that one.
I'll move that we ratify the signature of the commission chair on the State of Utah Agent Defense Commission grant application as stated in consent agenda item number 1.
Second.
I got a motion and a second to ratify the signature as stated in number 1. All in favor say aye.
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 That passes 3-0. Okay. Number 18. My only I just wanted to know, we're rescinding an agreement that was just approved a couple of weeks ago. And so I just wanted some clarification on what's happening there. I was looking through the documentation, couldn't quite see what was different.
Heather
we're
Lewis,
changing.
Prevention Program Manager with Utah County Prevention and Treatment. What has happened is we just wanted the contract to be very clear that we were awarded some grant funding through the Division of Substance Abuse and Mental Health to contract with Payson. We already had a contract with Payson City to do Communities That Care Coalition. This funding will allow us to increase the coalition leader into a full-time status. But the reason for this amendment is that we needed a clarification that the contract would last until the end of the grant, which is in 2019,
Okay.
rather than
All right.
at the end of this coming fiscal year.
Okay, that seems fair enough. Yeah, I just saw that 2 weeks and I thought, wow, what has changed in 2
we
weeks?
just wanted to make sure that it was all the I's were dotted and T's were crossed.
Okay, fair enough. Thank you. Any other questions?
Nope.
A motion to be in order?
Move that we approve consent agenda item 18.
Second.
Got a motion and a second to approve agenda item number 18 as stated. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. That passes 3-0. Okay. Number 19. Let me get to it here. This is a policy change. As I read down through this, we have, in this, it's still near in my memory, going through with the treasurer's and assessor's office and so forth, in which we were, money that was uncollected at times, and we set a limit of $5, and this one here seems to be set at $50 if they can't find them, or if the account goes active for 90 days. And then after 90 days, the same thing kind of applies if we can't find them, if it goes inactive. My only concern is it seems like we have different things going on in the county, and I'm not saying that's a bad thing, because, I mean, your clientele is different maybe than businesses and so forth. But if we run a analysis of where we're at in the collections of money like this, and seeing where, because I don't want to be chasing money that's, $5 if it takes us $10 to chase the money. But some of the biggest concern I had is that it can be written off if it's over $50, and I don't know to what limit we go. Let's say it's $1,000 that's on there. After 90 days, it's just written off. I'm just concerned about the policy change and why it would be requested.
Well, that wasn't the intention of the policy. Maybe it's not worded clearly enough. Let me go back. Richard Nance, Director of Department of Drug and Alcohol Prevention and Treatment. It's meant to be a small balance write-off policy. So it's kind of standard business practices. If you have an account that's older than 90 days, the chances of collecting that are fairly low. If we spend a lot of money trying to collect these, it's costing the county more than it's worth to do that. One of the things that happened was, you see there's a code reference there, subsection 31A-26-301.5. That was a recent change in the state regulations requiring us to kind of go to some more extraordinary efforts to try to locate a client before we send the unpaid balance to collections. So anything over 50 wouldn't be automatically written off, it would be sent to collections after we made that attempt to locate the client.
Okay. Okay, so that's the code 31A-26301.5.
Right.
All right.
And we had Ben Van Noy, our civil division attorney, make sure that we were between the white lines as we wrote this, and so it complies with the new code citation. But, you know, we don't want to, you know, waste a lot of our
Right.
clerical time trying to collect small balances that are uncollectible.
Yeah. So with the county, it seems like we have different collection mechanisms in the county. And I'm just wondering if we should, I don't know, in the clerk auditor's office or the treasurer's office and assessor's office, we have all these different ways of collecting. If we shouldn't be looking at a form, or maybe it's inappropriate to do that because the clientele's different. Yours is way different than, like I said, with businesses. So I'm just wondering if we shouldn't be looking at a uniform collection policy or not.
Yeah, to give you some context, 97+% of the clientele that we treat in our system are at or below federal poverty guidelines. So they have very little income to start with. They also tend to be fairly itinerant. They may move 2 or 3 times during a 13-month treatment episode in drug court, for instance.
Right.
So it's very difficult to track them down. These small balances are usually for assessment only, and that billing rate is about $68 for that service. So if, you know, they've not made any attempt to pay, then it's, so yeah, there's a difference between the clientele we treat and a small business who may generate $500,000 a year in revenue or more.
Yeah. I just remember a number of weeks ago, we were discussing and spending some time on balances of 1 penny. And there needs to be mechanisms in place, you know, to write these off and move on, or to accumulate them as they move into the future. If somebody was to come back and then activate it, does that trigger anything, or is that written off and it's just gone forever and they start over in a year and try again?
Well, at that point, we wouldn't make any further collection effort. If they did make a payment a year after we'd written off the account, we would accept the payment and apply that against.
Okay. So what if they came back, I'm just saying, like, they had a balance of $49 and then they came back a year later and we'd already written that off?
We'd accept it.
Okay. All right.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, I was just going to say that each department, as you pointed out, has unique areas that they have receivables. As you know, the clerk auditor's office has a lot of the intergovernmental receivables and billings to other agencies and things like that that we handle. Richard has the end user, the clients, and different things that way. And if you would like, I think it'd be a very appropriate project to have the attorney's office, the treasurer's office, and our office do a look at things and make some recommendations if there needs to be some. At this point, historically, it's been left up to each department to do something, but if you as a commission want to do something differently, we would be more than willing, at least I'll volunteer my resources, my internal auditors, to help look at some of that stuff, just to give you a report back.
It makes
Yeah.
perfect sense to me that as a county,
it?
we would
Okay.
want to look into that.
Okay. Fair enough then. That would seem appropriate to me, just to have some consistency in there.
Okay.
Oh, Sheriff?
No. Sheriff Tracy, one of the issues that we have that is unique to us is the pay to stay issue. That's where the inmates are charged that $40 base pay for every day that they stay. And that collection system has been unique and different from others in the county because that bill never goes away. If they come back in again, then if they have any funds on them, then we take those funds up to and including what they owe, or then reduce down what they do owe based on what they bring in. It also does go to collections, and we do see some collections through the collections process. But again, our clientele is much like Richard's clientele. Many of them are way below the poverty line, unemployed, and so we catch as catch can. But it is effective to the point where we can get funding from those who have it, and it does stay in perpetuity until it is collected or until the individual passes away.
Do you have a limit
No.
that you collect? I mean, if they owe a penny, I mean, you're not chasing that, I hope, but.
Well, no, we're not. We won't send that to collection.
Yeah.
We'll just hold that in-house.
So there's a certain threshold in which you.
That's correct.
Yeah.
And our agreement with the collections people, they won't take anything under a certain amount. I don't remember what that is, but it has to be worthwhile to them for their efforts too. So.
Yeah.
But any and all of it that's not collected still stays on the books, just so you know, for the county as far as what's owed to the jail.
Okay. Thank you.
The sheriff brought up a really good point. That might be an alternative for us. We'll have to look and see if our electronic health record billing system would allow us to do this, but we could cease collection efforts on these small balances and leave them on the books. But that's going to create a liability that's going to grow over time, and I don't know if Clerk Otter would be happy with that. But that's another way to look at this.
Well, it would seem appropriate to probably pass this today and then have, and look at what needs to be done. That's how I see it anyway.
Yep.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, a motion to be in order?
Move that we
Move
approve,
that we approve and I'm sorry, go ahead, Commissioner Ivy.
move that we approve and authorize consent agenda item number 19.
Second.
I got a motion and a second to approve and authorize number 19 as stated. All in favor say aye.
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 That passes 3-0. Okay.
Number 7.
Oh, I got I'm all mixed up here. Get back to it. Number 7 on regular. Okay, Mr. Moore.
Yes, Robert Moore, County Attorney's Office. Let me highlight this one today. This one is, I think, a wonderful purchase, potential purchase by Utah County. A few months ago, you directed me to begin negotiations with the property owners here at Lincoln Point. Lincoln Point is a unique piece of property. It's along Utah Lake. It's adjacent to our Lincoln Beach boat harbor and park, and it offers a unique view of about 270 degrees around the valley, and particularly the lake and other areas. So I began negotiations with Don Blackwelder and Philip Snellgrove and Helen Snellgrove, and Mr. Snellgrove is here today for this purchase. And they've provided us some of the history of this parcel. So it's an opportunity to expand the Lincoln Beach Boat Harbor and Park onto this adjacent property. And so we discussed doing that. I've been in negotiations with them, and we've come to a resolution of that. I've discussed this with you along the way. The final purchase price is $450,000, and it's just over 17 acres, plus an additional 18.8 acre feet of water that will go along with that, and that will help the county, I think, in the future as we look at what you want to do with that parcel. I will note there are some challenges with the parcel. There's a lot of rock there, and there's a bedrock there, and I've been in touch with the health department, and they mentioned that it may be difficult to put a septic system in there. If you decide to put bathrooms, we may have to do a vault privy or something of that nature. Another issue that came up, though, is the tax serial number that's listed on your agenda was the old one. Apparently, it may have been modified. Andrea Allen told me that yesterday, and it may be now 28001-003. And I have referenced that in the real estate purchase contract that it may be adjusted already. Both the Snellgroves and also Mr. Blackwelder has signed that. I've uploaded that to your agenda, a signed version of that agreement. So today, if you're willing to approve this agreement, we would then acquire this unique piece of property. which others have sought to acquire, including the state of Utah and the Boy Scouts and others, because of this piece of property. It's a unique piece. And if you could authorize Richard Nielsen to execute all necessary settlement documents on behalf of the county today in your motion, I'd appreciate that.
Okay, so 28001003
Yes.
is the correct parcel number?
That's what I've been informed. I have referenced both of them just to make sure we get the right one. So there was a document that was recorded in August that may have changed that number, according to Andrea. So yes, please.
Okay. All right. Since we were trying to put this on consent and we got pulled off, I think that I can safely think that we're going to go ahead and approve this, but with the changes. Any comments or concerns with that?
No.
All right, motion would be in order.
Move that we approve and authorize regular agenda item 7 with the amended change to the tax serial number. I'll just make it this way, whether it's 2 or 3, the appropriate tax serial number for the purchase, and authorize Richard Nielsen to sign on behalf of the commission all subsequent agreements.
Second?
I got a motion and a second. I want to clarify that motion. That is to sign all the additional agreements. Richard Nielsen, was it sign or set?
Settlement documents. It's just the closing statements and things of that nature that he'd be signing at closing.
Yeah, okay.
Otherwise, you'll have to sign them all, and I'm not sure you want to account for that. So.
Okay. I got a motion and a second, as stated, for number 7 with some clarification. All in favor say aye.
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 That passes 3-0. Okay. We have number 9, 10, and 11. Number 9 and 10. And you know, for the life of me, I can't remember why we kept them separate, Dave. Can you tell me why we kept those two, 9 and 10, separate? There was a reason why we did, and I can't remember.
Yeah, I don't think they really need to be. It could be one item if you'd like.
One is the actual accepting the proposal.
Which is not required that we do, so.
It's not
but
required.
They don't really need to be.
Right. Number 9, we're not
So number-
statutorily required to do. We don't have to accept,
So number 9, we could strike then, and then
and then just
move on to number 10.
discuss about whether or not we want to adopt any of the proposals.
Okay,
Plus that document is also contained in number 10 anyway.
Yeah.
right.
I'll move that we strike regular agenda item number 9.
Second.
I've got a motion and a second to strike agenda item number 9. All in favor say aye.
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 Number 10 is to approve one of the options presented in the McGrath Human Resources Group with the implementation of 2018. That was continued from last week. We have a lot of documents in there. This has been going around, which is fantastic. The employees have been able to see draft versions. I have to point that out, draft versions, because it's been going through a whole bunch of different processes to get us where we're at. Cammie, would you or Merritt like to come up and kind of explain what we have here?
Tammy Taylor, HR.
Merritt Fulmer, HR.
We had an outside consultant who recommended a new salary structure, recommended what the fair market value is for all of our jobs. We presented the commission with cleaned up data, where people are, where they'll be at the end of 2017, and then we presented 5 different options. Option 1 for the commission to consider is to place employees on the current step that they're at in the new system with no adjustment. So this will have a primary impact for people who are paid below what the recommended range is for the fair market value of their position. Next, would you like me to go over impact budget numbers with each
Sure.
option as well?
You bet.
Okay. Scroll down. Oh.
And maybe you can start us with start us out with the 53,548 number, that you have on there too?
So that
Yes.
number it represents where everyone would be at the end of 2017 had they been paid that wage all year. It's not a true number to begin with. So we worked with the clerk auditor's office to determine what number would be appropriate to start with, and we determined that the appropriate starting place to determine an impact increase by this market study would be to start with the budget projections for 2018, the number that would include the 2.35% and that was distributed in the tentative budget in August.
And just for clarification, do you have that number?
That number is,
Yes, Merritt can give you that number
Yes.
while I'm trying to figure out how to scroll on this thing. It's a 54.
Uh, 54,089,417.83.
So starting with the $54,089,417.83. Option 1 with the current
Can I ask you to clarify real quick something?
Sure.
So the original one that you emailed out says 55,065,000. What accounts for the decrease?
The decrease is the 55 million was the number that you would end with in 2017 had people had that wage their whole year. When we're projecting 2018, we take what their step increase was throughout the year and we prorate it based on what their new wages, their old wages. So that is what accounts for the decrease.
Okay, so option 1 is basically not implementing anything.
It's to get people who are paid below the lowest point in the range that we have, get them up to on the salary schedule, and then putting everyone at the closest dollar amount they would be at in the proposed salary schedule. And that total for
Okay, so I've got to ask a question because this is going to be relevant for all 5 of these options you presented. Therein lies the big problem with this salary study that I'd like you to address.
okay.
The problem is you have recommended, and again, this came partly from Victoria too, to bring up everybody to the market level. In other words, we fixed the injustice for everybody that we've hired within the last couple of years that thought that that was actually a competitive wage and joined us. And then people who have been with us for 18 years or 20 years or 25 years or 30 years or 35 years or 17 years, it doesn't matter. What we've said is, yeah, although the market has moved up a significant amount by the same percentage that we're moving up the bottom, it's moving up, and that's actually higher at the top end. We are not giving them any credit because the salary study should also include your years of experience. And so we're just saying that we want to move them to the closest dollar amount. And that doesn't raise concern for anybody that we're just sticking it to all the people who have served the county for 10 or more years.
I would like to clarify that by moving individuals to the closest dollar amount, it does account for years of service because we have, it accounts for years of service for everyone who's over the entry-level step. So you're moved to the closest dollar amount if you were making $20 an hour and the closest dollar amount is $20.80. You're moved to that closest amount, but you got to that $20 because you moved through the system. So it doesn't put everyone.
So hold on. That's my point. Is so we adopted a system based on previous salary studies, and I do have them all going back. We adopted a system, and under that system, we redlined people based on their work performance and everything that we said the market did. This new one, and based on what Victoria told us, is the market has moved, and we are wholly inadequate in our paying people at the top end for our retention. And so what we're trying to implement is something that doesn't address any of that. So again, the problem is I know we're moving them to their nearest dollar point, but the reality is if somebody has worked for 25 years with the county, They should already be redline. They should be going from redline to redline because the market has actually moved that much for them. We know that. The only reason that this is presented this way is because Victoria kept saying to us, well, you guys can't afford it. Well, that's beside the point. We need to know the real data and talk about the real implementation of a salary study, not talk about whether or not we can afford it. That's for the commission to decide. We need the real numbers for the employees.
Absolutely. If you'll allow me to get through all 5 options, I think I'll be able to address your concerns.
Okay, thank you.
Option 1 is a step with no adjustments. Option 2 is...
Can you also, so we have, I just want to make sure we're bouncing the numbers correct.
Sure.
So we started with the 54 million, and then option 1 would have an increase in impact, and if you can give us that number too, because I based all my numbers off the 53.
Sure. So just for wages, the difference between what the projections are and what the $55,065,899.60 is $976,481.77. When you add in the county benefits with the 401k, workers' comp, unemployment insurance, prudential, the percentage that are a percentage of employees' wages, and you add in what their benefit elections were for this year, that number becomes, for option 1, a total cost of $85,508 and $508,095.80.
85 million, 5,000.
Pardon me?
85 million or 85,000?
85,508,095.
85 million?
When you add in, you have the 55 million for wages, you've got a little over 18 million in benefits that you're paying for unemployment, for workers' comp, for 401k.
Yeah, that's
URS.
73 million. So where's the other 12?
The other 12 is for the actual benefit elections that people made for their medical, their dental, their vision, their, you have a list of.
So will you go in then, so on the number that you gave us, for the number you gave us for the benefits total of 18,082,154.92, then what is contained in that 18 million that's not in that other 12 million?
So we have one set of benefits that is a number that's based on the percentage of wage, and that's going to be for your unemployment, long-term disability, URS, prudential, workers' compensation that we pay into different vendors for the percentage of the wages. So that's the 18 million. What we did was we took the benefit elections that everyone made and trued up the number that was distributed for the 1,300 accounts with the actual benefit elections made by the county employees. That raises it by $12,360,041.28. That's how you get to the 85,500,000 number.
Mr. Chairman?
Yeah.
If I can clarify, so we're looking at a base of 54 million.
For wages.
For wages. Then under option 1, you're saying that it's increasing 18 million?
No. The wages are increasing $976,481.77.
And how much is the benefits on that?
The benefits for the percentage is $18,082,154.92.
And that's if everything's added together on it.
Would it be helpful to you if I just added the benefits together and not broke them out into the percentage versus flat dollar?
Well, because the benefits are already in the base number, and so I'm looking for the number of the benefits that are in the 976,976,000.
And the
benefits are not in the 976,000.
But if there was an increase, then there would be an increase into the benefits with the 401k and the URS and so forth.
Yeah, wouldn't you just take a percentage of that 900,000, the percentage increase to benefit?
I think what the confusion is too, the spreadsheet that you just barely sent us says Utah County grand total, $55,065,899.60. This was just sent like 20 minutes ago. $18 million for, and then it says $18 million for benefits. That's only $73 million. That's the question. But then below it says option 1, $85 million. But yet you put it in grand total. That's what's confusing.
Okay, the grand total is for wages, and then the benefits total is for the percentage benefits.
Okay, so benefits total is not really a benefits total, it's
I
a
can
benefit
put my
total.
spreadsheet on the screen if you'd like.
Oh, that might be helpful.
Okay.
As you're plugging that in, Cami, for simplicity purposes, from my perspective, if you could just give a total of
Okay.
what adopting that plan would cost us, I think that would probably be very beneficial. So
Okay.
this isn't obviously the exact number, but if you adopt option number one, it would cost you 1.7 million, or it would cost you 12 million, right? With the salary and the benefits together.
Okay.
So that I can look at my available funds, my budgetary restraints, and decide how I can move forward to get the employees the best compensation possible.
Okay. So,
But the problem is, Commissioner Ivey, on the bottom of those, it says 85,508. It's showing that even with a projected difference of 976,000, that somehow all of a sudden we're paying wages and benefits of like millions more than what we've ever done with only 976,000. I'm just looking at the spreadsheet that just was barely sent out by Kendra. Is that what you pulled up on the screen?
Yes.
Okay.
Oh, yeah, it's not on here yet. Oh, here it comes. Maybe it's gotta be turned.
You have to turn yours on.
They'll turn it on. That'll help. There we go. Okay, so we're looking at the spreadsheet now, and we're looking at option one.
okay, option one is to place employees on the step in the new compensation system without any adjustments. That will cost the county $85,508,095.80. Option two,
What was our number for 2017?
I only have the wage, I don't have the 1,300 for 2017.
Well, but my point is that's higher than our entire budget for 2017.
Yeah.
So if we don't implement any option, that's what you're saying, with nothing, somehow it's increasing millions of dollars. We need to start with the right numbers here.
My total benefits?
I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, Brian Thompson. Our budget last year is not 85 million.
It was
Or
like
it's not within
82.7.
a million of 85 million.
Yeah, for our general fund budget.
Yeah.
So maybe the clarification as I'm thinking about this is, are we looking at all employees across all funds?
Yes. All employees in the staffing plan. So that would include your career service, your appointed, your elected, and your retained by election.
So then to truly compare past to present, then what was the base number for across the board for all employees in the staffing plan in 2017?
I have the wages.
And what is that number?
The number that we went with, we took what the budget projections were for 2018 in the tentative budget that was sent out that included, do you want to explain it better than I can?
No, what are the real numbers in 2017, I think is the base number.
I'll let Deneen speak to that when we talked this morning about the number that was the true number that we ought to be using. That includes all the changes to the staffing plan, that includes projected increases, career ladder promotions. It's the 54 million that I gave you originally.
See, that just doesn't make sense as far as such a huge jump.
So I wonder, have you done an analysis where you take on option number one, you have the 976,481, and that number for option number one on salary increases has got to translate across over to benefits. What is that number just with this 976,000 that would be additional with the benefits? Is there a certain percentage that's in there so that we can have those two numbers added together? And that would be a cost.
They're at the top if you're public safety. Is it this one? You're going to use the 42%, 4235. And then if you're non-public safety, it's the 2862, so the 28%.
So what would be that total number if we added the 976 with the other number? Because that would be the, as I'm looking at, that would be the cost to implement option number one.
It's roughly it's just south of 1.4.
Thank you, Greg.
So
That's
1.4, because I had 1.5 on mine. But anyway, so 1.4 is the number for.
1.4 to 1.5 million to implement.
Okay. I think that's where we're trying to.
That's where I'm trying to get.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's really what we're looking for.
For me, that's the number I'm trying to understand.
What is the bottom line number from the base on option one and in each of the options, when you include the wages, plus the percentage of benefit from those increased wages? What is that final number, the difference?
I had it at 1.517040, but now that number was based off the other number, the 53, so it might have some fluctuations in there.
So, but this also means that we're going to adopt the new salary schedule, because that's what this has on it, is the new salary schedule. And keep in mind that the top end of that is still more expensive than what we can afford.
Yeah, and we need to, I recommend that we go down through and look at the options on a money basis, and then we can have that other, because there's multiple things going on. One, we've got the market study. Second, we've got the pay scale. We've got them all colliding at the same time, and so it'd be nice if we can just kind of go down through. And I understand, because you're correct in that, Commissioner, that it is implementing based on that 18-step.
Well, I think we ought, if we decided the pay scale first, then you could go backwards and actually then figure out the budgetary part of it, because you need to actually have. We need to know, for example, what we're making, not, hey, let's hear every option. That's what's slowing us down. We need to pick an option, and then let's move forward with that from a budget standpoint.
Yeah, I would.
I think that's what we're trying to do, is pick an option. From my perspective, I'm just trying to make sure there's, for public record and clarification, the options are clearly explained, and then we would pick an option, or option 6, none of the above. It's hypothetical.
I think something as simple as option 1, which we've, I think, determined is a 1.4 million increase.
Yeah.
And it is based upon this methodology.
And it's based upon this new system.
Option 2 is
So what's
based upon
option two?
X methodology, and it's gonna relate to X increase. Option 3 the same. I think that's probably the straightforward, simple way, so you at least know where the 5 options, is that correct?
Right.
There's 5 options.
Well, or option 6, we do a flat percentage increase, because even only 5% increase is just about $2.5 to $3 million, which we can easily afford.
So option number 2, then, if we could do that same scenario, where are we at with?
They're saying that that's more than they've ever spent.
Okay, so Cami,
That's not right.
option number 2. what's our end impact? With the understanding that this is on the recommended new pay scale.
It's about 700,000 more than the previous one.
I have it at a
That's
little
with
over
the
2 million.
that's with the URS numbers. That's why I say about. I don't know the breakdown. It's not broken down by public safety and non-public safety.
I have it listed at 2,015,289, but again,
It's roughly $500,000 more in salary, and therefore, if you take the 30% additionally, that's where you get the $700,000 to $750,000 more than the previous plan, because you're forgetting the other part of the benefits, the URS defined contribution.
We need to.
Her 2018 numbers on the spreadsheet says 1.474730.69.
Searching 1,300 with everything. It's 30 million.
This is 1,100.
1,300.
1,300. The other one was 11.
Then she shows option 3, 150,000 more in salary, which means then we're also at about 220,000 more than the previous option.
200.
So option 3 takes the employees who are below
what
market.
about 2? Do you have 2 numbers for 2? The total impact?
I mean, I have the numbers for,
You have it at about 2 million?
for just the wages, 1.47.
Plus the benefits is about 600,000. It's going to put us at 2 million.
Yeah, that's why I said about 700,000 more than the previous option.
Okay.
Option 3 takes individuals and moves them up to market if they've worked here 6 years or more.
And that one's, and the impact on that one is just a little bit over option 2.
It would be the 1,549,520 plus.
It's about 210,000 more than the other.
Plus the 600,000 that you're estimating the increase to benefits to be. So that puts you at like 2.1.
2.1. Yep. Okay. And option number 4.
Option number 4 would be to take what employees were expecting, a step increase of 2.35%, and then placing them on the new schedule. The cost of that would be, we'll say 2.2, because you've got 1.9 plus 600,000.
So I have it at 2.4.
It's higher than that.
Are you at 2.5?
What do you have it at, Commissioner Graves?
Well, using the same number that we used on the first one for public safety, and just using that equation again, it's a rough guess. I've got it closer to 2.7.
It should be 1.9.
So we broke out public and public safety by each individual person and the percent benefit.
Right. What I'm saying is using your grand totals on the 1,891,586.61. I'm saying I'm taking my same percentage because I don't have a breakdown on what percentage of that is public safety and what percentage is not public safety for the URS benefit, because again, I don't have an actual benefits number from you that's different. And so what I'm saying is using that formula, it puts us closer to 2.7 as a total implementation. Again, I'm trying to make heads or tails of the 5 different numbers I've received from you guys in the last 2 weeks, and so I'm just trying to use the same consistent pattern across the board.
And your base number on that, though, was 1.9.
1,891,586.61. That's the number she gave us an hour ago.
1925.
Okay,
Yeah, you round that to 19.
okay. And
Then
number
you have option 5, which is taking
4.5, yeah.
each individual using the fair market value that was given to us by the independent consultant, shifting the range up by that many steps, and then placing employees on the current placement in the scale that they have earned through years of service. And that impact to wages would be $4,316,411.87.
Then about an additional 1.3, so about $5.5 million, using the same formula I've been using.
Yep, okay. Those are the options that we have. Roughly, option number 1 is 1.4, option 2 is a little over 2 million, option 3 is 2.1 million, option 4 is 2.5, and I mean, there's some discussion on that, 2.5 to 2.7. I don't know if we can get closer, because that's, we're talking about hundreds of thousands of dollars there, which, and then option 5 is about 5.5. So option 4, if we can kind of just hone that one in a little bit.
Why not option 5, where it gives everybody the equality of where they currently sit? Let's talk about that one.
That's option 5.
Yeah, option 5.
That's what I thought I heard Cammie say, was option 5 is the one that takes our current salary study from McGrath, places everybody based on their years of service and experience.
Yes.
On our current salary study, on our 13 steps.
Yes, either way, it's on our 13 steps, so it's taking the market point from our current salary schedule, adjusting that market step, that market point by what McGrath calculated the fair market value to be, and then moving people to the same place within the range as they are now in our 13-step range.
Mr. Chair, can I clarify, is that with their existing title or the adjusted titles that have been suggested?
That would be with the adjusted titles and the grades that she's proposing and the fair market value that she's proposing with that associated grade and title. It's kind of creating a hybrid, using her fair market value to adjust our current 13-step range.
Brian's question is an important one, because I've had a lot of concerns from people in the health department, a couple in my portfolios, that have had problems with the change in titles.
Yeah.
And that change in titles actually came and was given to Victoria. She didn't come up with that on her own, correct?
Her change in titles and streamlining, no, that the new titles came from Victoria. The direction that we gave her was we wanted to have streamlined titles throughout external industries and then consistent internally, so that we didn't have someone being called a manager who didn't manage people, and we didn't have, we had some hierarchical differences between divisions and departments that we wanted her to clean up.
Okay. So in other words, based on her market study, I'm looking at this. She's saying that the overall county employees are underpaid by about 8% based on the market in our current system.
With the change in titles.
The titles don't have anything to do with what she used as market. She used job.
Right, I'm only talking numbers. I personally, I don't care what we call people as far as their title. That's up for, in my opinion, the department heads to label them. I'm talking about fair and equitable pay for the actual job description and job performance.
But the change in title does do it, does work in a market study outside, because if you change the title and the description of the job, then you go outside, you do a market study with it, then they're gonna have to look at whatever that title is and that job description outside.
No,
Well,
job titles.
yes and no. Job title's nothing. Job description only. What you do for your job is what you should be paid for your job, and
Right.
that's the concern I have. Part of the flaws in this is when we talked to Victoria, for example, one of the easiest ones for her to review was the commission assistants, and we know she didn't do that because we've all three had that conversation and compare those against certain ones. So she didn't actually do job descriptions across the board. The answer I got from her made me feel like she analyzed job titles in some regard versus job description.
You can see.
Sorry, when conducting a market study, it is common knowledge that you're going to, for the most part, ignore titles and look at the duties being performed, because job titles are not consistent, like we've seen even within our own entity, but outside as well. Someone, another entity could call someone a manager, and that does mean that they're supervising employees, where different places could use the same title and it has different meanings. So it is common.
But that's not
typical.
That's
you
not
look
entirely
at
true, because manager can be used for so many things. You can be a finance manager and never manage people and just manage money. So manager is not a manager of people. Manager is a manager of items or job performances.
Well,
that's part of the flaw.
For this discussion, though, we're talking about whether or not this market is a true market number, and the title wasn't considered. Job duties were compared against similar job duties in other organizations. Then she took that and streamlined our titles.
So one of my concerns in the RFP was that we asked for market study based on what we have currently in our county.
The RFP it said that.
Well,
I don't think that it did.
Well,
that was what we passed on the motion when the commission approved the RFP to do this salary study. That was our intent. That's what we said. Anybody can check the record.
Because there's two things. There's the pay scale, and then there's a market study, and
Correct.
And so and that separation again has collided here, which I've had some concerns with it. I've voiced them many times. I'd like to see where we're at currently versus the market, so that we can have apples to apples on it. And with that, then we can adjust the pay scale, to make it work with the current market that we have in place. When we're adjusting, well, I'll give you an example.
Okay.
So I'm
so it
asked
sounds like you're in favor of option 5 then, Commissioner Lee.
Well, let me give you the example. The example that I went up to your office, Cammie, and we were going through the spreadsheets on it. And I'm being asked to accept the methodology of going down through this plan and coming to a conclusion at the end. But yet, when I was up there with you, we're going across and going down through, and there was a couple of positions, let's name them A and B, and if we went across, they had a 44% increase. Based on the methodology, they came to a 44% increase. And it was highlighted red because your office said, well, hang on a second, we're gonna have to look at this and make an adjustment with it, because it doesn't.
Not make an adjustment though.
It doesn't work with what we have in the county in the way of equity with others that are here.
So I know the two individuals you're talking about, and we flagged it because it's such a huge percentage increase. We wanted to make sure that the data was inputted correctly, but no adjustments were made. It still reflects a 49% increase in option 5 for those individuals.
And so, again, from our conversation, we talked about how those individuals versus, because of the job title, that's on there, they're gonna be at the same range as another person here, which obviously has a lot more responsibility. That was our conversation. So my concern is that, and then right below those two was a couple of individuals who are getting zero increases. And that one was flagged as, ooh, that's what's going on here. Is that correct? Should there be an adjustment? What should be done? And yet the people underneath are at 0% increase. And so as I look at it, if we're accepting the methodology for any line in there that it's correct, then we'd have to accept it for everything that's in there.
That's correct, and that's what we've done. We didn't make any adjustments other than to see that the data was inputted correctly, that we reviewed the ones that we had questions about just to make sure that the data was correct from an original wage standpoint. And
okay. Then going along that line of thinking, we talked about some of the others that have, and I've received, I mean, the people in this county that work are fantastic, and they write me emails saying, I don't want to make waves, I just want to point out some of these concerns that we have.
Right.
And a lot of the concerns are coming back, and as they look at the market study, they're saying, I've been here so many years, and somebody else is just barely starting, but all of a sudden they're catching right up. They're right up at the same wage. And so if we're, again, accepting that methodology, we're going to say that's correct. They're at the same wage, and we talked about the disparity between, because of promotion ladder increases and so forth, where individuals have been moved and now they're going to jump way up with others that have been here for years. It seems there's an imbalance that's going on.
So the imbalance is perpetuated by taking a market study and not making those adjustments. But we felt that
which is what previous commissioners have all done.
Taken individual people and made adjustments on them?
No, they've never accepted the full study of market studies. They've only implemented partial of it, and that's how you get this huge imbalance that like Commissioner Lee's talking about. The one thing he's always talked about is some of these people aren't making livable wages. And so when he's talking about the two people who are at a 44.95% increase, well, yeah, because when you see what their job is, we're not talking actually a lot of dollars, actually. We're talking very little dollars to get them back to a marketable rate for what they do based on their job. And so, it puts them more in that livable range category and still under the range of where Commissioner Lee's always tried to look and say, these people, we need to find a way to give them more money.
So that wouldn't be consistent with compensation practices to look at an individual and try to give them more money. What you do is you look at job duties, you compare them against the external market, and then you come up with a fair market wage. Now,
right, but the difference is that's true for the range. And then when you take that range, you then take that individual. So those people who are listed in that on lines 4 and 5 in that department, those two people, then after you have the range, you then plug in the person, and based on their experience and based on their years of service, then you plug them in on that range. That's exactly my point. Option 5 is the only one that does that, and that the reason they're getting a 44.95% is either they slipped through the cracks in previous ones, or the market has corrected in so many places. But regardless, it doesn't matter the names attached to it. You're exactly right. Their job duties have come through, and they are entitled to nearly $16,000 a year more.
So I think you're confusing two issues. The first is that there are inequities in our compensation system. Those come from different supervisors, different HR directors, different times when recruitments were made, whether it was a difficult recruitment or not, what someone was making in the market, and we've given jump starts to individuals. Now, people who have received jump starts have jumped over people who were hired previously who were not given a jump start. This market study doesn't address that. That's something that as commissioners you guys can address, and you can say, for this position, we understand that's happened. We want you to take a closer look, and we want you to bump up by 2 steps certain positions or people with X amount of years.
But see, that's why option 5 does go back and address that, because
it doesn't address that. It doesn't. It perpetuates the same inequities.
But you're forgetting. So one of those jump steps, so let's say in your department you've taken jump started somebody 7 steps into their range, okay? Why should any of the commissioners get involved in the day-to-day operation in your department if you know what's best for your department, and then come back in and say, okay, you jump started for a reason. The reality is what option 5 does is still move everybody based on the step where they're at, because again, if the market has actually moved on that, then the reality is that's where they should be. And if we jump started them, then guess what? Then we screwed up already in the beginning. It's not our chance to go back and take it. The only way the commission can actually fix and lower wages or be unequitable to people is to scrap a salary, or excuse me, not a salary, scrap the org chart and reduce it or re-amend, or I mean, there's amend. There's very few options we have, and so the reality is we've tried to rectify that. What the commission has done is I led and made sure we changed the ordinance that only the commission can approve more than a one-start jump start. When the sheriff had trouble recruiting, the commission met and we increased the starting wage. So we have taken care of all those iniquities, and option 5 actually still addresses that. If they started at that wage, this still moves them up with that. And if it doesn't, then again, I stick by my other point, then let's just raise everybody 7% across the board and be more open and transparent and try and fix the inequities rather than trying to squeeze it into a constrained budget time.
The raising everybody 7%. I mean, it sounds great, but it doesn't
still
really work.
perpetuates the inequities that are there.
We have all kinds. Yeah, it just perpetuates all the problems that we are trying to fix.
The 7% comes from the 7%-ish that is on our current plan. So the inequity, again, who created those inequities? So pick a department, right? The department heads did. So what are we going to do to hold them accountable?
No, it was the department heads, and it was also previous HR directors. I know that I've spoken with the sheriff about having an issue recruiting entry-level deputies, and the decision was made to increase the entry-level step by $2 an hour so they could attract people. But anyone who was hired during that year prior, before this crisis came to a head, was not given a jump start. So you've got people who are hired in that group who have leapfrogged over other deputies. This will not fix that. The 7% will not fix that. That's something that the commission needs to give direction that we address and correct.
Well, the real reality is all that was brought up. You brought it up, actually, or the sheriff did, when we talked about that, and the commission still gave it, and we still didn't adjust the wages at the time, because I was there for that conversation. So the commission created that inequity, and again, what are we going to do to fix it? Because I cast that same vote.
So you created the inequity?
So here's a couple.
Exactly what you're talking about in the sheriff's department. We knew that. We brought it up with the sheriff at the time, and we still didn't do it. They thought it was okay for the time for what we were doing because they thought the market study would fix all of that.
A market study doesn't address those type of issues. Those are still issues that we need to address and we need to correct.
And again, then we shouldn't be trying to do it in a 3-week time period that we have left. We should give a straight adjustment across the board and then spend the next 6 months trying to do it.
But then
if we give a 5% and freeze or a 6%, whatever.
So here's a couple thoughts. I appreciate your comments, appreciate the comments and work of the individuals involved here. My biggest problem as we've worked through this particular study has been the fact that we've tried to take on too much with trying to implement a whole new pay scale and try and get people fairly compensated. For me, my first concern is the employees and getting them to a fair compensation ratio. From the comp study, the numbers that she gave us, we have 9% of our employees who are absolutely in need of adjustment, 15% absolutely need considered, and about 53% are at or below average or will fall there quickly. So we obviously need to take action during this particular budget season to start to address that problem. I think, Commissioner Graves, you bring in a good point of trying to identify a percentage or a number that allows us to do that. I think if we look at our budgetary process, and I know this doesn't get us where we have to be today, but I think it gets us on the right path. If we come in with about $2 to $2.5 million in additional salaries for this particular budget season, we can start to identify especially those employees or positions where there's large discrepancies and start to work through them and fix them. If we can build into our budget this year a dollar amount that allows us to begin that process, then we don't have to do it in a 3-week period. we can go ahead and build into that process, identify them, and start the process of fixing those inequalities up front. And then as we work through the process next year, we absolutely have to make sure that we've planned appropriately for the future needs of the county and look at how do we implement a new pay scale, and in the process of that, bring some of those other identified inequalities out, and then make sure as the budgeting process approaches that we have the funds to address that moving forward. For me, I think that gives us an opportunity to immediately address some grievances and concerns and get people more fairly compensated and work towards a long-term solution as we go forward.
So can I ask you a few questions just for clarifying? If we took a number like that, you're recommending $2.5 million and putting it into maybe a freeze pattern as we work through fixing some of the inequities that we have, or looking at a pay scale. It wouldn't necessarily be adopting a plan. Is that what you're saying? Not adopting a plan?
I'm not saying we have to
anything?
adopt a plan. I'm saying that we've identified, here's the money. It's specifically going to fix the inequalities in the current pay system and get everybody as close to market as we can for this particular budgetary season within our current pay plan.
But the only way to get everybody to closest to market is option 5. It's the only one that we were presented. I'll give you, for instance, you look at the bottom, all of the patrol. Let's just take one in patrol. It's like the 6th or 7th up in option 5. If you want to take the fair market, so what you're proposing isn't exactly horrible, but it doesn't fix the inequities, because there's not one person in patrol that shouldn't be adjusted more than 7%. In fact, the average person in patrol, our sheriff's deputies who keep us safe, should, by market, get over 12% increase. We're not talking about any of that.
Well, I think that's, perhaps I didn't explain that, because that's exactly what I'm talking about, is that we start with those areas of greatest discrepancy first, right? So if we've
but
got,
$2.5 million doesn't get us there.
that gets us closer than we are today.
But that's why I'm saying option 5, if you adopt option 5, the $4.3 million in salary, the $5.5 million actually fixes a lot of it, because it gives everybody those percentages and does actually get rid of some of those discrepancies.
And
it's not perfect,
right,
but it's the best one.
And I'm not disagreeing with that. My concern budgetarily, as I look at about 9.7 remaining in reserves after we look at capital improvement projects where additional reserve funds are allocated, and then an additional 10 million in asks, I don't have enough money. and so
we have $37.5 million, of which we only need to retain $4 to $5 million. If we don't have enough money to run the county, then we should be talking about tax increase, because the reality is every one of these people provide an essential service for the county. They are the real public servants of Utah County, not the three of us, these individuals that we're talking about. And so we should be implementing that takes care of the real public servants for Utah County.
I'm not disagreeing. We need to take care of the employees, and these are the ones we're trying to fix here. I'm a little confused on the 37 million, because the exact number that I got from our chief financial officer of available reserve funding was $9,730,276.
We have $28 million, or the legal limit that we can retain in our reserve account, which is based on our property tax collection and the percentage in that. Then years ago, commissioners created a slush fund. We can call it the capital expense account, but we as commissioners have never spent a dime out of that. It is literally a slush fund that has not decreased. It's over $9 million. So 28 plus 9 is $37 million. I understand that legally we have to retain a certain percentage of that, but that small amount, I believe, is between $4 and $5 million. So that gives us $32 million in which to properly fund the government for this year, and then make the appropriate tax increase to fund the government.
Okay, I'm going to look to my clerk and auditor for clarification.
Yeah, Commissioner Graves, there is that total number that you're talking about that is listed in the reserves, but there's only a portion of that that can even be used in the flexibility to go ahead and meet the budgetary asks this time around. And really the base number is more like 16 million, Then when you look at the fact that we have almost 7 million that we borrowed from, or took from fund balance in the 2017 budget, which we haven't closed yet, in reality, at this point, there's really only $9 million that you have to work with. All the other...
So we're operating at such a deficit that we're not being responsible and we should increase our revenue? That's what I'm hearing.
No, I think it's a matter of we'll be just fine as we methodically go through this and look at things. And then down the road, if other discussions on revenue increases need to take place. But currently, we can do this if we maintain the appropriate approach that we've done over the years, and that is look at things carefully. I know this particular budget season, there's been a lot going on, and with this market study and that, we've been put in a position where we haven't been able to provide the information, and I think you as a commission haven't been able to do the full due diligence that you would like to do to make the final decisions. But I think as far as a base number, we need to realize that really we're looking at 16 million, of which 7 million of that is what was put in the 2017 budget, which hasn't been closed out. That year won't be closed out, and then you have 9 million to work with.
I'm a little concerned because, one, we talked about all those numbers at our work session, and Deneen said them to us. But when I brought up last year that we were going to evaluate this whole year for a tax increase, you said, and I won't say I quote because I don't know, but I will paraphrase. You sat there in commission meeting and said, we have plenty of money. We do not need to go for a tax increase. And now you're telling me that we are pulling from fund balance. That is not appropriate. So here's my other problem. When you say we run if we do like we've done in the past for the county, that's great. So the sheriff can't open the doors, they can't patrol, they can't keep it safe, because what we're telling everybody is, hey, all the people that are doing it, we now have a market study that knows that we are vastly inequitable, we are not taking care of our employees, and we're afraid to go for a tax increase and give you the essential services. But if we do it the same way we have, and that is to tell every department head, we know better than you as a commission. You don't know what you need to run your department. We know better, and therefore we're going to just say, okay, instead of the 1.5 million you asked for, or in the sheriff's case, the 2.9 in additional, to keep the doors open, we're going to say, okay, here's 1.4 million, because that's all we have, because we haven't done proper planning or execution to keep the county safe, and therefore, good luck.
Let me just respond to that, if I may, Mr. Chairman. Just real briefly, I've always been of the understanding, and my personal philosophy and what I see is that as long as we manage our resources appropriately, that at this point we have enough funds. Now, that isn't to say that as the county grows and as needs change and different issues come up, which each of the departments have explained, there isn't other things that need to be looked at. But I think the message that unfortunately came out that I hadn't seen in the previous 8 years of doing this, but in the last 2, is let's just go ahead. We have a large fund balance. Let's ask for everything. I think that it is important as stewards of the taxpayers' funds to look at those asks and then make the determination, and you as a commission ultimately decide the difference between wants and needs. Just like the individuals in this county who pay the taxes have to make decisions on whether they're going to buy a new car or do a repair or something like that, we have to make those same type of decisions based upon the funds that are given to us. Now, in the process, because the county is growing and there are other things happening, if it becomes in our long-range planning appropriate to start looking at other revenue sources or how we operate, then that is very appropriate. But I will stand by the statement that I made in sessions in the past, is I feel at this point we are okay as long as we truly look at wants versus needs and that. But ultimately, that's just a recommendation I give. It's up to you as a commission to make that determination, because you're the ones that interact with the public and the departments and that. So that's why I said the statement I said, and why I think...
But we need to let everybody understand what the business of Utah County really is. The problem is what previous commissioners is, and this isn't anything we've set up, but we're here and we need to rectify this now. What the commissioners have done in the past is robbed from Peter to pay Paul. We have robbed from all the revenues from every one of our departments. So the sheriff's department brings in revenue. We don't put it back into their account and let them fund themselves. We take and apply it to the general fund. We take extra from assessing and collecting. In fact, we actually have an internal audit because we actually have robbed from our employees to fund a portion of HR from years ago, we think. We have been taking from everybody rather than doing the appropriate thing and talking about the real wants and the real needs, which is what we need to do, is figure out those wants and needs. And then at the end of the day, I trust that every one of our departments have given us the true wants, the true needs, not their wants, because we asked them to go through that, and I trust them all, that they have given us the needs. And if the needs means $9 million more, and to also take care of the employees, then it is on this commission to fund that entirely, and then go for an appropriate tax increase to provide the essential services to the residents of Utah County, period.
Okay, this discussion can go on for days and weeks and years. If we could get back to what we have at hand with the market study there and what we're looking at, what can be done, realizing that our consultant gave us options 1 through 4. Those are the ones that she suggested to us. Option 5 was to look at what it would look like in our current pay plan. Commissioner Ivey, as I'm looking at what you're planning on doing, understanding that it took a long time to get to this point and that it's going to take some time to get us, headed in the direction that seems reasonable. For me, I would like to address some of the inequities that are in there. I'm concerned. I'd also like to see the department heads a part of this discussion as well, as we're looking at now drilling down into individuals and their jobs, and not just this big blanket look, so that we can, because a few of them have come to me and said some of this stuff doesn't make any sense at all, and it's actually going to cause some problems within my department, and so I'm concerned about that. I feel comfortable if we were to look at option number 4, not necessarily adopting option number 4, but taking that money of $2.5 million and then applying that as we work down through with an understanding that this is to the employees, this is the employees' money. If we don't implement some sort of a plan till June of next year, that they get paid retro. This is money that goes to them. It's not one that we're going to say, oh, well, we saved that half of the year. This is that money would be going towards fixing the inequities, getting us on a pay plan that makes sense. We talked about maybe even shortening the 18 steps down if needed or necessary, whatever the case may be. But at least it gives us a budget number that we can work with and go forward with.
The problem is I don't disagree with what you said. We do need a budget number, but the flaw is in the concept or the application, excuse me, because I and Commissioner Ivey were there when we met with Victoria, and she said, well, what I've recommended you is not real. The reality is you can't afford to do the right thing. So why we continue to keep casting votes for things that are wholly inappropriate, I agree with setting money aside potentially, but I also think, okay, well, we know that the whole market has moved a ton, so let's move every range, 5%, freeze raises, free step increases for the year, and then that way we have a whole year to include the department heads. We can afford the $2.5 million, nearly $3 million with the extra benefits. We can afford to do that this year, and that way it gives us a whole year to do it, but gives all of the employees something right now to help fix the morale and the fact that they've been browbeat by all commissions in the past over salaries.
Okay. Are there any motions?
I'll move that we approve a 5% across the board increase for all employees, non-elected officials. Elected officials should be excluded from the 5% increase across the board.
Okay, I've got a motion for that. Are there any seconds?
I'll second for the purpose of discussion.
Okay, I've got a motion and a second to approve the $5.5 million as a percentage of increase.
5%.
5%.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay, the 5% across the board. Are there any other discussions to that?
I'd love to hear comments.
We usually, when we have a motion on the table, until we conclude that, we don't take a comment. So right now, it would be, it would.
My comments are pertinent.
Let's look at parliamentary, maybe perhaps we need to withdraw the motion and have public comment, because I would like to hear public.
Okay.
I agree.
I would like to
Okay,
hear.
that's fair enough. Fair
and
enough.
if we need to, for the parliamentary procedure part of that, I'm happy to withdraw my second or support of that, because I would like to hear comment.
Yeah, and
on
I'll
that
withdraw the
Typically on
motion.
procedure, if we have a motion on the
that
table, then
particular
we address that. Do we want to withdraw those so we can have a comment?
Yeah, I will withdraw
Okay,
the motion so
very
we
good.
can have
Okay.
comments.
A comment is appropriate.
Yeah, comments and backstory and back channels are always appropriate because there's a lot of gossip that always goes on with back channels. In particular with this, I know what numbers are available right now. It's 9.5 million. That is what is available now. Is that false? Commissioner Graves?
Well, I've been told two different numbers by the clerk auditors. One from our work session last Wednesday when we made the go over it with somebody present, one today.
Okay, for the record, Deneen, will you come here, please, and let us know if 9.5 million or 9.7 million, which Commissioner Ivey has stated, is a correct number that is available for funds right now?
The problem is, I can't allow it to get into.
Okay, that's fine. For the record, Commissioner Ivey did give that number to me, that 9.7 million is available.
It's the number I've been given from Deneen in
What
her
is-
office yesterday.
Yes, from Deneen's office yesterday. Commissioner Ivey, thank you. Commissioner Graves, what is the number that you feel from the information, or the numbers that do not, the two different numbers that you've been given? Will you give me those numbers, please, sir?
Well, I stated the 28 million, which legally is the max that we can hold in reserves, and the just over $9 million in our capital expense account that I keep referring to as a slush fund, because that's really what it is.
Thank you. So approximately there is $9 million that could be used to be given to cure inequities this year. 9.7. Is that correct?
That's correct.
I feel that there should be lifting of those burdens of past commissioners right now to use significant, not just 5%. And I believe that if former commissioners were here that tried to cure inequities that are stated from the minutes that were submitted by Pam Bear, they would give a lot more than 5% this year. They would give the full 9 million.
My name is Robert Stevens. I represent the people here in the county. Has anyone asked the county, has anyone asked the people in the county if they're willing to go do a 5% increase across the board? You know, Mr. Graves, he said it best. He said, if you don't have enough money to run the county, then we should discuss a tax increase. You know, 55.5 million, and you consider we have about 500,000 citizens in the valley. That's 100 for each citizen. But I would estimate only a fifth of those are the people who own the lands and pay their taxes. And so a fifth of those are paying a total of $500 a year. A 5% increase, I think, is worth having a vote from the citizens. I mean, it's so easy to go sit here and raise the taxes and raise the budget and so forth, but it has long-term effects. It's not just this year. It's going to be next year and the year after and the year after. Where I'm from in Maryland now, the house that I grew up with now is $2,000 a month in taxes. My dad's mortgage was only like around $300 when he first bought it. Who wants to retire and have to afford a couple $1,000s in taxes because every year they just kept increasing it? I would rather see discussions about efficiency. Why do we have so many employees in the county? I'd rather see the money be used for roads and bridges and wastewater treatment systems, as I thought the money was supposed to be used for. You may
But
have the
who's
money
going
in
to take
budget.
care of those, Robert?
You may have the money in budget. You may have it in excess. But most citizens in the country don't have cash reserves. And if you're going to increase your salaries, then you're taking money from them that they haven't authorized. And I would rather see you go ask the people in the county if they're willing to go and give you the extra money that you're willing to go allocate for your increases in salary. Thank you very much.
Raphael Millett, private citizen, Utah County Recorder's Office. I can understand that we have sacred funds here and that you guys are sacred stewards of those funds. But I also know of the inequities, and they've all been stated fairly well. I was on different committees for benefits. I know salary studies. I've looked at all of the salary studies that I have access to. I know those inequities, and I could extrapolate data, but it's not my place. I know that those inequities right now, that 9 million is not too much. What has happened over the past 30 years, and I need to know for the record, when was the last property tax rate increase? Brian Thompson. What year specifically was that? Okay. Commissioner Graves, what year was that? Is he
Well,
with us?
the rate does adjust, but the last significant increase.
Okay, the last significant, I can stand reproof, sorry.
Yeah, the last significant increase was the flood years of the mid-'80s, but they have made minor adjustments to them over years.
Okay, when was the last tax levy increase by the commission?
I'm not familiar with it.
I don't know.
Was it 1986? I'm not positive myself. Can I get that information from the auditor's office, and if on the record, please, right now, or within the few minutes? That it should be readily available, and that's something that they should know. No one can respond to that?
I don't know how quickly we can obtain that data.
Oh, okay. I understand. Thank you. At least I wanted to ask that question. I thought that people knew those answers.
Fair question, but I don't.
Okay.
I don't know the answer.
It is approximately 30 years. I don't have that data, so I wanted it on the record. Okay. We need to be fair to families. There are lots of families that are under burden, significant ones from the choices of past commissions in this county, especially employees here. We have had very good employees leave, professional employees, because of chances and opportunities elsewhere, because they were redlined, or there were inequities in the pay scale, or that there were desk audits and certain offices padded theirs. And I can give examples of those, but I think that the commissioners do know that personnel benefited from those desk audits. Other desk audits or changes or jump starts occurred in other offices too. The assessor's office has done well because Chris Polson fights for his people and knows the systems and knows the monies and where they are, and he presents his needs, and his needs are met.
I think he would disagree that his needs are met.
Okay, he won't speak on the record. I wish he would. The asks are needs. The needs are low. Inequities need to be cured, and they must be done now. Otherwise, there will be more harm to the employees. The benefits package is okay. The health care is not. We should be at 80%. That is what we strive for in the past. If we agree with the past, and we have looked what people built on, we should be at 80% of market at all times, or strive to get there. That is fair and equitable.
Quickly, Sheriff Tracy, just a couple comments on the budget. Part of the issue that we have seen as far as trying to match services with the needed services with the budget that we have has been, and as Brian Thompson indicated, he talked about how in the future we look as needs increase. We've seen that increase since 2008, when we've had the disparate issue of decreasing funding as far as a percentage in training and other parts of our necessary budget, as in equipment and manpower. Those things have not increased at a same rate as our duties have increased, and the need for the duties based on the salary or the population increase. We've seen a exponential increase in the different types of crimes that are coming in that didn't used to be here as we become more cosmopolitan. So our problem has been, as we tried to manage the monies that come to us to keep our personnel, most of that money went into wages. And the disparate part of that is that as a percentage of our budget, our operational costs have gone down. That's why we have that $2.9 million in asks this year. And those are critical asks. We did pare back some of those based on our first submission, as you know, but the ones that are left on there are just critical needs to keep the doors open, to keep the level of public safety where the citizens think it's at and where it should be at, so that we can keep the canyons safe, that we can keep our roads in the county safe, and try to knock down with a presence that is more than just responsible or responding to the things that have already occurred. We need that proactive part, which is starting to suffer, and we've had those discussions with this commission. So the parts of the increase in the asks for the operational non-employee funds are critical at this point in juncture too. And then you add that on top of what we're trying to accomplish with the salary survey. I know it's considerable, but at this point in time, I must say that we are at a break and a failure level if we don't get those increases based on the volume of increase in services that have come our way based on the population increases.
Okay. Could I ask you a question,
Yes,
Sheriff?
please.
Particularly coming back to the concept of compensation to the employees in your department. The one word I keep hearing is inequalities. Do you feel that a straight across the board raise fixes that, or do you feel it's better to identify how much money we think we can put it at this year and then adjust based on position?
I think maybe a hybrid of the two, based on the reality of what we know we have funds for. It's critical that we get those additional ask monies, and that's going to take into or chew into your available monies considerably. But I think the inequities we've had that have established themselves in the sheriff's office have been the quick fix, as we say, like when we can't even bring jail new hires in because there's a lack of applicants. So we took that $2 and we moved that money up to actually increase the wage. We did at the time even figure to the man what that cost would be to those who would be the inequities of the people who were already here that got jumped over by the people who were coming in with the $2 increase.
Right.
Right. We proposed that, but there was no monetary fix for that at the time. So I think we're going to have to fix some of those greater inequities at the same time giving across the board some kind of a wage increase so that we can keep those people who have been here long term and not have them walk out the door for other places.
Okay.
Sheriff, can I ask you?
Yes.
So a 5% of the 54 million basically comes out to $2.744 million. And what I'm hearing you saying that if we did go with what was proposed as a 5%, that would be that $2.7 million. And then the hybrid, I think, is what you're saying is that we turn around and we try to find a way to fix if we just put this into the current plan that we have, it doesn't solve the problem.
Right.
We'd have to have a hybrid, which means that we're going to have to adjust our pay plan so that we don't continue going down the same direction. If we keep it in the same pay plan, we're going to have problems continually as we go forward.
That's right, and I think that's the if the timing is an issue, then and the budget needs to be set as we know it does, then we ought to put some monies in for expenditures, and then I would hope that the commission would look at maybe a reserve fund or a restricted fund to help fix those inequities as we find them and as you address them and as you approve them. That would be something that could work. for the benefit of both those long-term and short-term employees that have just come here.
Sheriff, I need to clarify because those were
Yes.
some carefully crafted words. When Commissioner Lee's bringing up the $2.7 million and he took your words and said hybrid, what I understood you to say, and this is why I'd like to speak very clearly, you are saying we should give some sort of raise across the board and then also set aside additional money to fix iniquities.
Yes, above that 2.5 or 2.7, whatever that is. That's what I was stating, yes.
Okay, just want to make sure.
Thank you.
So 5% across, because the problem that I have with that, just on face value as we're talking about it, is that if we give it across the board, it doesn't fix the inequities that we have in there. That means that we'd have to adjust again into next year or next year to change the pay plan so that it helps to fix the inequities that are in there.
You're correct. You want to know how I have that 5% number? It doesn't really address the inequities. What that is a safety net because we have had cost of living increases gone up so much that it's really more of a cost of living adjustment and gives us a year to fix it while we freeze everything because we can take, by freezing everybody's steps increases, which is one of the proposals that HR would like to see, which I support, is if we freeze all those for a year, we take in $1.8 million potentially of step increases that we can help fund that 5.8%. So we're really only talking an additional $1.5 million with the URS. And by doing that, then we still set aside additional money to fix the money. So in reality, what the hybrid is my proposal is let's rectify because I was voted down 1-2 last year for no COLA because we said this would take that into increase. Well, that's not true. When you and I both know that the COLA increase this year should be 1.9%, and previous year the commission voted against following the county policy. Last year it should have been 1.7%, and all of this that has gone on before. If we just give 5% adjusting for COLA, and then we set aside, involve all the department heads, we can fix all the inequities that are going on inside this pay plan and set aside an additional $2 million or $2.5 million to help fix that, then we're really only talking about an increase to the budget of $3 to $3.5 million in totality.
So why would we not try with let's just say that $2.7 million, try to fix some of the inequities with that along the way?
We should, but
because some of the market study says that people are at the market, and if we then give that increase.
The market study does not say people are the market. The market study says here is the market and here's the range, and then we have artificially plugged people in based on their current pay.
Well, no, there are some in there that says that we're 9% that are woefully under. There are some that are 40% that are getting close. It does say that there are some that are being paid adequately. So I'm wondering if if we just give it across the board, we're going to wind up with those that are adequate. Now all of a sudden we have another band that is pushing it out.
Because we're forgetting the one constant in life. We are not taking into account COLA. Cost of living is real. I know it's been the axiom of all public members for years that, government gets COLA. COLA is real. The reality is the gas rises, milk rises. It doesn't matter who you are. So the reality is we have not taken any of that into account. So to give somebody a 0.26% increase,
right,
it's still not real because you and I both know the CPI index this year says 1.9% in Utah County.
Right,
so unless you're talking the minimum of that.
And that's the reason why we go through a market study, because that also takes that into consideration as well.
It doesn't, because Victoria's statement nullifies. No, it would if Victoria's statement didn't contradict exactly what you're saying, and her statement was you can't actually afford to do the real market study. That's the problem.
Cami, there was some statements in there that talking about COLAs as well in the market study.
Meeting that she said it to us.
Cami?
I can't speak to what Victoria said or didn't say, but the information she communicated with me was that the number that she gave us for the market includes the cost of living adjustments for this first year. And it takes into account previous cost of living because you're right, those wages inflate. That's why we compare to external agencies. so that we can see how those jobs have inflated.
Right.
Okay, then let's do some simple third grade math. Let's use the old open and closed alligators. Is 1.9% on the CPI index greater or less than 0.26%? Because I know that answer, and so the reality is it impossible if somebody's getting a 0.26% increase or $4 over the entire year, that cost of living, that statement is wholly inaccurate by every math standard out there.
Each entity is allowed to determine how much, if they're going to go off of the CPI or if they're going to have a less than that cost of living. So that's why we compare to outside agencies, so we see the actuals on what each individual entity has chosen to inflate their wages by.
So, because I asked her this question specifically when I had a chance to talk with her, because I was concerned about this issue, and I said, if we're doing a market study and we're not considering the cost of living increase for this year, then we would be behind at the very beginning when we started.
You're correct.
And that was my concern. If the market study did not include an analysis with the COLA, then you would automatically start behind.
Correct. And
she mentioned to me that she says this does include the COLA, so I'm assuming
Correct.
that she's factored
If
that
that
in.
was your concern,
Correct.
why didn't you vote for a COLA last year then?
Well, that's off topic. If you want to, discuss that, we can discuss that.
No, it's not off topic. You just put it on topic. You said that you were concerned that it didn't start with COLA. So let's review what this commission has done.
Let me address that, Greg. If you want me to address that, I'll address it.
Okay.
So last year when we were talking about that, I had a different plan that I wanted to put in place, but I couldn't get anybody to listen to the plan. I actually took it to the Employees Association and asked them what they thought from their leadership. And my plan, heaven forbid, my plan was to give those under $50,000 a little bit more. That's what it was. Those that were under $50,000 a little bit more, and then have a gradual basis into the $50,000 and out, based on the average salary here. That was my plan, because what happens with a COLA is that those that are around the $20,000 or $30,000 range, they get pennies in their pockets, and those that are on the upper end get a lot. They get a lot in their pockets. So I was trying to find a way for those under $50,000, and if that's
Sure.
the criticism for me doing that, so be it. But that's what I was trying to do.
Sure, but don't say I didn't listen, because nearly an hour ago in the commission meeting, I actually, when we talked about the 44.95% increase on people, that's exactly what I said, and I gave you credit because you have always been an advocate for everybody under 50,000. So then, once again, giving everybody a straight increase does help in that regard. It also takes into account the cost of living. So the other thing is that this commission is also the authority board for Wasatch Mental Health. We have given and approved, as the same voting body in a different capacity, more than what we have given to the Utah County employees for cost of living increases over the last 3 years. So to be fair and equitable, if we believe it in one vote, we should believe it in another vote. And that's my problem that's why I think the sheriff model of the hybrid is the best thing, because then we're taking about $3.5 million under my plan, freezing salary step increases for next year, but giving it across the board, and then taking the additional money and fixing some of the inequities.
Okay, Raphael, you've been waiting. Go ahead.
I've been turned off.
You're on.
It's on.
Oh, yeah, it went red. So that to me is quite fair, but I don't think that it is adequate to do even 5% at this point. I have lots of things behind me that can say that. The market is frothy. You're going to have difficulties. Employees are having severe difficulties. Healthcare costs are burdensome to them. We are a high user, of course, end user here at the county. Benefits package for retirement and pension is great. Their salaries are not. COLAs have not been followed and applied properly in the past. I know that we were supposed to have COLAs every year into the salaries, and they should have been much greater. I can go back and get those minutes. Steve White put those in place. Are you familiar with that, Commissioner Graves? that we
It's
have.
excuse me, it's actually county ordinance or policy.
Have we
for us to
followed
do
it?
the COLA increase in years that the
Have
salary
we
study is
followed
not
it?
given. No, we haven't.
That is correct. I know that well. That is why the 9 million needs to be cured immediately, and for whatever other purposes you have, you need to spend that on the employees now.
Okay. Any other comments since we have it open? Yep, got one coming up.
Gentlemen, I'm John O'Hara, the Sheriff's Office. I spoke with Cammie and with Victoria at the question and answer session, and I'll tell you I have quite a few problems with not necessarily the numbers that came up in the study, but the implementation proposals. And I think that's where a big part of the issue lies. Take me, for example. By plugging me in at the closest dollar amount to what I currently make, that bakes in the last 10 years of lack of pay increases that have been said over and over and over will be taken into account in a fair wage study. 2008 was the last fair wage study that got implemented. At that point, for my pay scale, it was a 10% increase. Held merit increases for the next couple of years. The 2011, at least what was stated to county employees, was it was canceled because of coming out of the recession. 2014 was not fairly implemented. We're now at this wage study, and rather than putting employees in where they belong on their pay scale, we're being told that it's fair to bake in the last 10 years of no COLAs, well, correction, 2 years ago, and basically put us in and bake in those losses, our declining income for the last 10 years. The option 5 that was given, where we take the pay scale, the new pay scale, if you want to do that, fine, but those wage increases and put us in where we're at. For me, for example, I'm currently on step 10. Based on what I saw on the draft information that was presented, which I appreciate, I would be put in at step 7. If I were put in at step 10, it would be almost a $2 an hour difference, which, when I take a look at COLAs, market increases, everything for the last 10 years, would be about right. I've heard the personnel director talk about several things with inequities of certain positions that are being hired on, and there is some truth to that with a handful of people. However, the current method, I have a deputy right now that works on my team, that's worked for us for 4 years. I have another deputy that's worked for us for 4 months. Implementing this new pay scale, they will both be put on step 1, step A. The exact inequities that have been talked about for the last little while, we're creating more of them, not less, by doing anything but implementing people on the pay scale where they currently reside. Now, you gentlemen are the leaders of this county. That means that as a military officer who has experience being a leader, my job is to take care of my people and my community. Now, my understanding, and I've got this third hand, so it could be wrong, but the person who I'm told did the numbers did it, I have faith in. We are 29 of 29 in our tax rate as counties in this state.
That's correct.
We are the second largest. Yes. I've also been told that we could have up to a 100% tax increase and still be 29 of 29. Yes. Now, Commissioner Ivey, I was a delegate 2 years ago. I spoke with you personally, seeing this very issue coming. I explained this issue to you at a meet and greet, had a dozen other delegates, not county employees, just random walks of life standing there. You said we might need to do a tax increase. Do you as a citizen support that? Every one of us there said yes. My response exactly to you was, I look at my property tax sheet every year, and I see the school districts raising $50, $75 a year on my property taxes regularly. The largest increase I've ever seen on my county property taxes was $5. And I said, you can even hit the low end of what the school districts do, fix the county budget problems, and no one would feel it. How much do you as politicians hear from the community about the school district increases, the city increases? I'm not concerned for your political well-being, for the handful of very vocal delegates that say not one red cent. There are a lot more voters and delegates in this county that support rational taxes, fairness. I have a lot of very liberal friends from college. Their definition of a conservative is someone that would screw over their own mother for a buck. I don't believe that that's true. My conversation with you, Commissioner Ivey, was that you are the type of conservative that I believe a conservative is. If we make a fair case to you, if the numbers show that something is warranted, you will have the courage to take the appropriate action to make it happen. That's where I supported you, sir, is because you said that to me. Now, the only one I hear talking about it is Commissioner Graves. The pay study, the numbers on it for the pay areas I know, which have to do with the law enforcement positions and certainly the ones around it, the study seems right. The entry pay, the average pay, those numbers seem right to what I know. It's how you're choosing to implement it, and for the employees who've been here for a while, and to prevent that very wage compression that Victoria was so condescending to, people need to be put in where they're at. You can't correct the past wage compression, but I'd ask you not to create more at the bottom end. And to me, the only fair system, from what I've seen of the options presented here, is that option 5. If that means, sir, that you, Commissioner Graves, and hopefully you, Commissioner Lee, because I'm hoping you're the type of conservative I believe in, not the type that my liberal friends believe in. And if that means there's a tax increase by a small amount across the county in order to pay for this in the future, then it needs to be done. That's the courage of leadership. And for the second largest county to be 29 of 29 and remain 29 of 29, if there's a tax increase to pay for this, that's acceptable. I hear certain citizens talk about being on a fixed income. I would love to be on a fixed income as a county employee. I've been on a declining income for the last 10 years. Fixed income is a cost of living increase every year. Past commissions have flat out refused to do that. They've sold us a bill of goods. It's incorporated in elsewhere. Not into pay. When I spoke with Victoria, my reading of that from her as an expert in this field, cost of living should not be going towards insurance premiums. Cost of living is wages. So, gentlemen, as a county employee, as a taxpayer in this county, as a property owner in this county, I'm asking you, gentlemen, to live up to what I believe a conservative is, which is fair and correct. I know it's not your fault that we're in the position we're in right now. Past commissions have set you up for this. Fully recognize that. But I'm asking you to be the ones to have the courage of leadership to fix it. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Any other comments? All right. So to kind of bring this around, we've got the options out there. It seems like we're looking at either a 5% increase, which would be a 2.7.
There's not a motion.
I know. I'm just restating the options that have kind of been out there. There was an attempt for a motion at a 5% increase, which would be about $2.7 million. All the other options are still on the table. Any more discussion before we go to a motion?
Well, I'd be happy to have a little more discussion. I've been contemplating. I appreciate everyone's remarks a great deal, and there is no doubt that I'm never made a promise during my campaign to not raise taxes. I fully committed to making sure that we do what's right, and that becomes fiscally prudent. And what I'm looking at through my first budget process is trying to take the steps necessary while remaining fiscally prudent to take care of the employees and help get us to where I feel like we should be. One of the things that as I've listened to the comments that's come to mind would be kind of along the sheriff's thought process here and with Commissioner Graves's, would be some type of a hybrid. If we can reach a percentage increase number for the employees, maybe it's 3%, maybe it's the 5%, but I strongly feel that the word that keeps coming back is inequalities, and we've got to figure out a way to address those. So a thought that I would throw out here is if we do a 3% across the board increase for all county employees, equates us to about 1.6 million roughly, and then we would have about 1.1 million that we could put into a reserve type of fund to specifically identify starting with the most inequality places and then work through the process, and that would give us some identified funds to go ahead and start to adjust some of those inequalities. And as far as how we implement a new pay scale and a new pay system, I think that gives us a full year to go through that discussion as we talk about tax rates, to go through and have the town halls, to get the community input so that we have a lead and a feel for where the citizens are at, and help the citizens understand that these things are for critical needs, public safety, attorney's office, criminal defense, right, that we're not just fluffing money out there. And so I think there's a responsible process to go through as we have that discussion. But I think a model potentially like that could hypothetically get us started down the right path. It doesn't get us exactly where we need to be.
Sure.
But
can I just ask you a few
that'd be my
questions?
thought.
Are you basing those numbers off the 54 million? Is that the 54?
Yes, 54.
And that 3% was, what was that number again?
1,622,682.
682.
Change.
Okay, and that would be
So-
an increase. I mean, our the COLA this year is a 1.9. That would be a 3, so that would be an increase there. And then the other
That would
number
be an
was
additional, just a rough 1.1 million. It basically takes the 5%, but it sets some of that aside to start to address inequalities.
to start looking. So that
And the reason that I feel this way, and again, this is a thought process, this is a dialogue and a discussion for me. I want feedback on. These are ideas.
Right.
The reason I feel particularly this way, I get very hesitant because of other comments to neglect these other asks. And that's why I have a hard time throwing a whole 9 million at just salaries, is because I'm looking through a page of critical needs that I've also got to identify. But when we start adding all of those things up, they add up to more than 9.7 million. And so I'm trying to find a balanced approach to move forward to make sure I can have enough money in my budgetary process to start to whether it's setting those aside in some restricted or granting specific requests in the budgetary process, to make sure I've got some money to address some of those critical needs, as well as addressing this particular issue with the employees. And so I'm trying to make sure that I'm looking at that holistically when I address those things.
Can I
So
ask
I
Cami
like
a question
what you're
on
both
this one
saying.
really quick, Cami?
Sure.
If we were to take that $1.1 million, does that seem like that would be appropriate for taking that 9% and some of those others and trying to go after some fixes there? Or where would we be?
Point of clarification first, the 54,089,000, is that what you're going off of, Commissioner Ivey?
Yes.
That number includes the 2.35% step increase
Right.
already.
I'm including that.
You are, okay.
Yeah, I think that's the 54 million.
Yeah.
I think that
Okay.
2.3 was built into the budget.
This is over and above.
It was, I just want to make sure you understand.
No,
Okay.
yes, I understand that fully. I'm saying that this 3% is over and above. So essentially,
Good, okay.
you're getting, I hate to
it'd be
say
a
you're getting the
5%.
5%, because I think the 2.3 is,
Well, it'd be a
I mean,
5%.
it should
It'd be a
be there.
5% for some, and then others, as it's being fixed, it'd be higher than that.
right.
Right.
And so I understand
It would
that.
essentially be the 2.35% plus a 3% for anyone who isn't redlined, and then it would be the 3% for people who are redlined.
So, and I would be fine with 3%.
Okay, so
That's
hold on. I'd like to weigh in here, obviously. So I don't disagree with what Commissioner Ivey, and I'd like to take a hybrid of what both of you have recommended. So here's what I would recommend, and this is going to be my motion when we're ready. I'm not going to take an arbitrary number because I know that Commissioner Lee and I share that same opinion, and not that you don't, Commissioner Ivey. I just have never had that conversation with you. I would suggest that we take the CPI index for the last 2 years, and that should be our across the board. So whether that's 3.1, 3.7, we can find it out right now because I'm doing it. I believe it's 3.8% if I'm reading this correctly.
because you're 1.9. Yeah.
What? I'm sorry, what?
I was just saying that because you're 1.9 this year, and so last year I'm sure is not.
Yeah, and last year I
not
believe it was 1.7 if I remember. I'd have to look that up again. I'm trying, but it's not going very quick. Anyway, I would say that we take the CPI index, then we do, like Commissioner Lee talked about, and set aside money in a restricted account while we get the department heads involved, and we then take and fix all the inequities. That if you do cost of living across the board, and then we set aside money. Now, keep in mind, just because there's a deadline of October, that's the last date that we can do a tax increase. We can go for one through Truth and Taxation at any time. Where I'd like to take the hybrid of Commissioner Lee's is to promise the employees and the citizens of Utah County that we will then take and do that study and retro pay everybody back to January 1 after we have an equitable and fair assessment for everybody. But in the meantime, you should get at minimum the last 2 years of CPI index for your adjustment.
Okay, so you lost me at one point. Let me just clarify what you're saying. So
Okay.
you're saying you're saying the cost of living increase, and then as we fix the inequities that are in there, that also is retro back to the first of the year.
First of this year, yeah.
Of 2018.
2018.
2018.
Yeah.
So whether it takes us 2 months or 6 months, that way the employees don't have to worry.
Right.
That even if it takes 6 months, then they would get back pay for those times.
To answer Commissioner Lee's question about whether or not that 1.1 will take care of the inequities, what will happen is you'll have individuals that are, or department heads who have a large number of people who that will impact. And then you'll have departments that have high dollar employees that are below this market that will make adjustments for. And so if we can start with 1.1, get a direction from the commission of which areas of focus you'd like us to apply that money to first, and then allow for some exceptions to our current pay plan when people bring to you these inequities under number 5 of our pay plan, which allows for a department head to provide written justification to the commission to ask for a step increase or moving in the range to take care of some of those inequities that we have. Then that 1.1 million plus any money that the department head has that's left over from positions that are open for a long time, I do believe that we can get those inequities taken care of.
And for me, in slight response to this, as far as where I would see direction and where we start, is the area of greatest disparity.
Mm-hmm.
So I mean, if we've got an employee that's 40% below, obviously, they're the first one that needs to get brought up. And then so we would work through it on a percentile basis, starting with the positions that are the greatest percentage below market, and then working up through till we get through there. That would be
the issue is
my personal
twofold.
direction.
That's one of the issues where you're bringing people up who are so far below the entry level point of market that it will be some high dollar amounts. But you're also talking about what the sheriff addressed, which is you have people who there was a quick fix
We
and
need
people.
Right.
So both of those problems would need to be identified with whatever monies you set aside.
Right.
But $1 million doesn't even come close to fixing it, because if you look at option 5 at where it puts people, that number of 4.4 million is closer to what the real number is. So this 1 million, again, we're throwing a number at it in the dark. And so
I was basing that on your 5% recommendation.
No,
If
I
we split
understand.
it to the 3, that was what was left over.
Right, and I think and that's what I'm saying. If we go back, and by the way, I now have the numbers. Last year the CPI was 1.3. This year it currently says that it's 1.9, so that would be 3.2%.
Okay. I'm trying to be sensitive to the commissioners as we're working through a discussion. Are you fine still with having comments, public comments as we're working through the situation? I just want to make sure that we're fine with that.
Yeah, I still haven't made a motion.
Okay.
Officially.
Oh.
Now it's green. Raphael Millett, Utah County Recorder's Office, private citizen here today. The inequities that we have spoke on is subject to favoritism and subjectivism or subjectivity of the department heads, and there will be the chance to play favorites. This occurred in the past, and I can go back to Nina Reed. So there will be some issues. So I think that employees should be able to appeal directly to the commissioners.
It would have to be a plan that would work together with. I don't know how it would just. It would have to be one in which we say we're looking at the bottom 9% and we're trying to fix the inequities with those as we're moving through.
And I would maybe have a question. From reading through a lot of what we got from the market study, I think we could start to identify those to some degree from the market study.
I mean, I'm sensitive to that because.
And I'm not disagreeing. It could be abused. That's where I'd look at those numbers initially from the independent outside look to start the identification
Right, because
process.
you could be all the way up to a line, then all of a sudden, what about the person on the other side of the line? And that, so, yeah, I mean, it's a good point. Sure.
Sam Pete, I work for the attorney's office. I've worked here about 8 years, and I just want to address something briefly. I hope that I'm brief. Many of us
I'm sorry to interrupt. But your name cut out. Could you please state your name for me?
Yeah, Sam Pete.
Thank you, Sam.
A lot of us have been subject to these inequities for a long time. As an attorney, I handled extremely difficult cases and assignments, heavy caseloads, and at that time we were only promoted if someone who had a higher title than us left. That was the only way that could be changed. Eventually we got to where promotions were more likely to happen when they were deserved, and eventually we've gotten to the point of where things are more appropriate. That being said, we've gone through years and years of inequity, and so I hope that while we recognize, and I mean, we have people in our department that are vastly underpaid, and I hope that those can be fixed. But I also hope that we recognize that those of us who have finally made it to where we're more in market still had to suffer through all of that stuff, and that's why I think a flat amount of around 5%, if it's the 3% plus the cost of living or whatever, helps recompense those of us who've gone through this and didn't have any remedy at the time and are now in a position where we say, well, you're close to market. We still went through a lot of that. And so I hope that as you're looking at this, you will make sure to keep us in mind with this kind of idea of a flat increase for everybody, so that some of the things that have happened in the past, well, again, I hope everybody who's going through that now still gets made up for. I want them to be paid what they deserve. I don't want them to go through what we went through, but I still want us to be treated fairly as well. Thank you.
Thank you.
Darren Durfee, just a couple of comments. Having listened to all this, we've gone beyond actually the market survey and in budget and additional issues. I think, if anything, the discussion has probably prompted the fact that, as we discussed, as you ran for Commissioner Ivey, we're at a point now where there have to be some fixes. We've kicked the can down the road where there's no place else to kick it. You guys are in a tough position. I think everybody recognizes that. There's going to be some tough choices to make some fixes. And there are budgetary asks, and there are inequities in our salary that need to be fixed. And it's a difficult place to be. So I hope that as we go through this process, we're able to have a good open dialogue, understand what the issues are, understand what it takes to run the county effectively and efficiently, but also take care of the employees. And I think that's been pointed out very well by a number of people. So I just encourage you to do the right thing. Understand at the end of the day, there's only a certain amount of money to go around, and I think at some point that's going to have to be rectified. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's you know, when we started this, you know, for myself, I know that that I was told there's a lot of inequities in there in them, and I don't live in that world, so it's hard to see. I just hear what people are saying, and so I've been pushing for some time for a true market study all the way through. Part of the concern is we're jumping past the market study itself, you know, and we're saying, and I have my angsts with the market study. I do. And I think that we need to take care of the employees to the point to where we can afford to do so, and then put us on a path that will allow us to have further conversations instead of being stuck in a reoccurring pattern, which I see now is detrimental. And like Victoria said in her study, because we're in that pattern, there's other games that are going on to get promotions and ladder increases and so forth, which gives its own dynamics in this market study, because we've got people that are collapsing, you know, and it causes some problems there. So hopefully we can get there with a proposal that will at least start us, you know, in a mode that will go somewhere. And I want to just point out as well that when we're doing this, it does also affect, you know, the budgets going forward. I know I had a conversation with the sheriff, and I said if the market study and the employees are going to be our number one priority for this year, then it's also going to affect the budgets, you know, that we have here. And where's that hybrid of what we can do this year and to be operational versus taking care of the employees as well. And it's a give and take, and it is a tough spot, and that's why we're sweating up here. But go ahead.
I'm not trying to make you sweat, really. But
Not?
you know,
Yeah,
we've
you
been
are.
dealing with a lot of dung. No, I'm
Well,
not.
we're trying to
We've
correct
been
it,
dealing
too.
with a lot of crap and manure.
That's why I wear boots every day.
Well, I wear waders if I had to. Not boots. Those are just S kickers. Anyway, my point is, if we would have gone with what Steve White presented to me and presented to the other commissioners in closed meetings, 9 steps should have been added to the salary ranges. That would have cured some of the problems. Instead, they chose to go with 5. That's all he could get the other 2 to vote with him on. Data was given to him. He knew that. I have that if you want it. We are inequitable with our respective market. Just doesn't end at a state line, a county line. It's whatever is out there right now. I especially believe that that is the Intermountain West, including the states of Nevada, Arizona, Colorado, and Utah, with other county governments in those states. Those ranges would have cured some of these inequities.
Okay, bringing it back to the commission. Can we bring it back to the commission so we can have a discussion on it and then get to a motion? Okay, bringing it back to the commission for further discussion, and then whenever anybody's ready for a motion, let's move forward.
Well, I'm ready for a motion now.
Okay.
You want a motion?
Yes.
I will move that we enact a 3.2% increase across the board for COLA, excluding elected officials, for the beginning of 2018 budget year to compensate for the 2016 and 2017 years, and enact, well, I can't say enact. As a side note, this can't be part of a motion, but commit to the employees that the commission will do the open process that we've talked about, and unless I can't make it part of a motion, fix the salary study and give them retro pay back to January 1 of 2018 when the system is fixed.
Okay, so that That 3.2 comes out, if my math is correct on it, $1.77 million.
It's about right to me. Using the $54 million number.
Using the $54 million, which we are fully aware of, has the step increase in there.
And so that, did you want to have anything in there in an additional reserve to fix the inequalities?
Well, no, so that's why I say if I can make it in my motion that all the employees will get the retro payback to January 1 of 2018, because we would obviously have to go for and have the conversation for what's the real equitable pay, and probably go for a tax increase before the summer.
Okay,
So for budget purposes, well, go ahead.
I will second, so we can continue with the discussion.
Yeah, so the reason I'm not saying for the reserves is because following our budget practice that we started last year, is what I'm saying is after we get that equitable thing, we can go through truth and taxation and amend and open the budget for that discussion so that all of the citizens can weigh in at that time. That's why if we put it in reserves, then maybe the public will or maybe they won't show up.
Okay, so let me see if I can restate this motion. The motion is to, based off the $54 million and some in there, which has the step increase already included in there, a 3.2%, which turns out to approximately $1.7 million to be out of our budget this year, come out of our budget this year to fund that increase, with an understanding that we are going to consider and looking at all the inequities that we have within the county based off the information that we have from the market study and so forth. Is that the motion?
With also, if, again, and I can't see Dave's face, I want to know if legally I can say that once that's completed that the employees will be fairly compensated back to January 1 of 2018.
With the inequities that are found, that have been discussed and modified. I don't know what the wording is for it, but looked at.
Mr. Chairman, if you,
yes,
and if you do the 3% you're talking about, you also need to factor in the effect that has on benefits. The increased cost of the benefits.
Yes. Right.
Yeah, it's really about a $2.2 million.
Right.
On the high end, just to be safe.
2.2. Okay. And then you're fine with that second?
Yes, second.
Okay, I've got a motion and a second as stated, and I'm not going to reiterate it because I've tried a couple times, but we've got a lot of things in there.
The only comment or question I'd have between the three of us, I would personally feel a little more at ease having at least $1 million in the restricted account dedicated and set aside and that might not necessarily have to happen as part of this motion, but as we look at our overall budget impact on the next agenda item, I just recognizing that we know there's some inequalities, there's going to be money coming out, I would feel much more at ease making sure we have at least some of that dedicated and set aside. And
I hate just leaving
and
it
I
out.
I don't disagree with you, but I think that we should make it as part of the budget because this agenda item is really only to do with the salary study, and I don't disagree with that concept.
And I just want to make sure that that's clear from my perspective. Procedurally, I think we can plunk it either place.
Yeah, and I don't know why we could. Why couldn't we put it on right now? Because it does deal with the salaries, at least.
Because we haven't passed the budget, and I don't know how we can make a motion where we commit funds when we haven't actually approved the budget.
I think you can, if you would like, to make it a part of this motion, because the increase also is a part of the budget, so they're both interrelated.
So they'll both be related.
Correct.
Okay.
I would offer an amendment that an additional $1 million is set aside in a reserve in a reserve account to be drawn when iniquities are addressed or identified. Would probably be.
Rather than, I know that it's just a number, why don't we use a percentage? I guess what's the 1 million going to do? Because what if we're, 100,000 short?
For me, it's just a start, because then when we get into the actual detail of it, we can reopen the budget if necessary. But it gives us a starting point. Okay,
then I will amend my motion to include the $1 million proposed for a restricted amount into the general 1100 account of the county.
Okay.
I will continue the second on that.
Okay, I've got a motion and a second. As we've worked down through that, we've got 2.2 approximately $1 million in there with $1 million to put in a restricted account as we work through some of the inequities that we have in the county. All in favor of that, say aye. Aye?
Aye.
Okay, that passes.
You didn't restate, but I wanted to make sure it was part of the motion that retro paid back to January 1
Yeah,
of 2018.
I think that's understood. That's understood as we do the, yeah, just for the record, that's in the motion to be understood. Okay.
Chair, I'd request a 5-minute recess.
Any concerns with a 5-minute recess? I don't have any.
I'm good.
All in favor of that? Oh, we'll move on.
Aye. Renee, will you call me back or should I stay on?